Welcome to Rogue Bogues. This is episode 32 of the Basketball Podcast, and what a few weeks it has been, and specifically a week since we've done our last podcast, but a lot going on, a lot to get through, some really good things from this side of Australian basketball to discuss, and I'm sure my friend Pro over in Dallas has been watching.
No doubt. It's been an unbelievable couple of weeks, man. It's been fun. It's been really fun.
Yeah, I mean, just the emotion of last night. I obviously commentated all the games for the Australian Boomers, so I saw mainly the ups, one down against the US, but we'll get to them shortly. But obviously, US, credit to them, gold medalists again, and it seemed to me, I don't know if you caught all their games, Pro, but it seemed like they didn't play the best style of basketball, very one-on-one driven and orientated, but it got them a win, so that's irrelevant now. But it seemed like they were surging upwards throughout every game, it felt like. Besides, after that France loss, which was the first game, their first quarters weren't great, their second quarters were a little better, and then their third and fourths just continued to kind of get better, and then they just put the foot to the throat against most teams they played in that third quarter, and it almost felt like they were figuring it out on the fly. I'm not sure how you feel about it, but I noticed throughout most of the games they were better in that third and fourth, significantly. They almost sleepwalked at times through the first quarter, then kind of fought back a little bit in the second, and then bang, they got a 20-point lead at three-quarter time. Yeah,
I noticed sort of the same thing. I think a couple of things. I think that sometimes players, I'm not sure, maybe it's just my feeling, sometimes players when their back's against the wall a little bit and they sense that some teams are sort of making a run on them, or even, in the semifinals with Australia, like when you're down 15 and now your back's against the wall, because I'll tell you what, 3 or 4 more possessions and that game could have went much different if in the second quarter, if Australia got a couple of bounces or a couple more shots. And I think that, like, getting your back against the wall is a wake-up call. And, for some, you don't even want to wait to that moment. And the second thing is, I think the more they played with each other, I think that they got a little bit better. And like you said, they've always had those lapses in most of the games they played, especially in the later games. But I think that the more they played, they sort of got a little more familiar. They started playing a little bit better at times, especially defensively. And when they got that second unit in the game where most international teams can't really match that, you might be able to punch them in the face on their starting 5. But then when you go to your bench and they go to their bench, it's it's a lot different with the talent. And I think they started playing a little better because I think they sort of felt it. Like they were sleepwalking through games early on with the losses, to the teams they lost to, with France and the close games and things. And I think that it sort of woke them up a little bit about, especially defensively, swallowing people up when they need to, and then offensively moving the ball just a little bit better.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, and it was just noticeable to me. But look, this all starts and ends with Kevin Durant. I think they're a tough team regardless, but there were possessions throughout all their games where their offense. And they had an offensive set that was just horrible. It was clunky. They didn't move the ball. And they just throw it to Kevin anywhere on the floor. And he just makes such a tough shot. And a shot that, when in the Australia game, Nick Kay's guarding him on Matisse Thybulle, and he just rises up and knocks down what's considered at times a bad shot, a long 2 or a pull-up 2 or a short 8-footer. And it demoralizes you in a way when you're such a good defensive team and they've just got Kevin Durant at the other end. And it's just like you've had a possession that was 18 seconds of perfection, and then he just rises up and hits a big 3 in your eye or a big jumper or gets fouled. Or I think it's obvious he was the guy for them, and everyone knows that. But I mean, I would almost argue, I don't know if they're there at the end without him, and that you only play what's in front of you. And I'm not taking anything away from the other guys, which I'll get into a little bit in a second. But he's going to go down, to me anyway, as the best scorer, pure scorer of all time. I've said this a million times on the pod. I said it on air when I was commentating. Just the vast kind of, the majority, not the majority, I'd say, but just he has so much to his game. It's just he can post, he can go high post, he can elbow, he can go off pick and rolls, he can pull up in transition, he can get to the rim and dunk on you. He's a great finisher around the basket, and he shoots free throws at a high percentage. It's just it's actually as hard as, it is seeing Australia lose, he's a pleasure to watch, and he cops a lot of shit for, the way he goes about it at times and super teams and all that crap. But I feel like because of that, he doesn't get as much credit as he should. He's going to go down. I think he's going to go down as the best scorer of all time, pure scorer.
Bogues, what? You've been saying that since the beginning of the podcast, and at times you always want to reference back to Jordan and scorers like that, and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Chamberlain, Kobe, and you start thinking Durant. And I think this last couple of weeks, it just sort of it's a great example of why you are correct, and I think he will go down in history as the best scorer of all time, because again, Jordan wasn't 7 feet or 6'11", like he likes to be called. He wasn't 6'11" and couldn't get the shots that this guy can get off at any time. It's very rare that you see him get blocked, or you think that he's so skinny and can't get by guys, but he accelerates, gets to his kill spots, and gets to any offensive arsenal that he wants to get to. He can post you up the elbow, three, take you off pick and roll, fadeaways. I mean, he's Euro steps. He is phenomenal to watch, and he's a competitor, man. And he's a great player to watch, man. I have him number one in the league, because of his age and where he is in his career now. I've had that probably the last few months, and I think that the kid is, he's a special talent, and it was great to watch. And you're right. I don't think they get to where they got to. I think they would have lost games. I don't think they would have been in, I don't think they would have won the gold medal. They may not even been in the medal round if it wasn't for him, because he bailed them out of a lot of tough spots. I mean, think about the emotions of that Australia game, where Australia was up 15, and then he just took them on their back. He took the whole team on his back, and he basically got him out of that rut. And yeah, Jason Tatum and Holiday and some other guys sort of chipped in. But when it was like looking really bad, this guy didn't look to his left. He didn't look to his right. He put him right on his shoulders, and he just put his head down and just made shot and play and play. Look at the block he had on Lawndale, the block dunk. I mean, the guy, he gives it his all on both ends of the floor. He competes. I mean, he was fun to watch. I don't think that, look, Tatum played well, in the gold medal game. He had his spurts, and some other guys sort of chipped in when they need to. Bam was a great resource for him as far as a defensive stopper around the floor, made some shots, but no one could take the team in the back like this guy can and just sort of get them to where they needed to get to.
Yeah, and let's not forget off an Achilles injury, which is even more amazing. But yeah, the word I was looking for, I had a bit of a mind boggle a second ago, was just the versatility in which he can score. Now, I agree with you that there are some other scorers you can put at the same line or same level as KD, but my point would be the versatility. Like, you can't throw Kareem the ball at the 3-point line. MJ wasn't, he could shoot the odd three and get hot, but that wasn't his game, where KD can go 8 for 9 on a regular basis at times. And that's more my point. You can post, you can elbow, there's just so many strings to his bow. And that's why I think it's very, very impressive with the way he's gone. The other guy I thought, and I mentioned this as well, I think I'm smack bang right. I'm going to pat myself on the back. Jrue Holiday, he was a defining factor for them, because he was one of the few guys that didn't really need the ball in his hands for long periods. He was happy to swing. You could see that he was out there trying to get the ball through hands whenever he was out there, right? And at times he took some shots that he had to take within the offense, but he understood, I've got Kevin Durant, I've got Devin Booker, I've got Jason Tatum, I've got Dame Lillard. I've got guys I need to get going and keep happy for us to win. And what went underrated for him was that, and then his defense. He was up in people. He was picking up full court. It was a la Chris Paul in the NBA Finals, where it just wore opposition point guards down dealing with this guy. And he's a factor at the offensive end. He's not a lockdown defender, let's say Dellavedova, where he's going to pick you up, but then doesn't really give you much on the offensive end. So you can rest on defense and get your legs back for offense. Drew's actually going at you at that other end. And I thought he was fantastic throughout. In that Australia game, I put a line through his stats at 15, 8, and 8 in FIBA ball. A triple-double is very hard to get, as we know. But he was influential to come off that plane, no preparation, jump in that lineup, then start That's how much faith they had in him, and they knew that was the piece they needed. He was the X factor for me after Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant was a guy that got him buckets when they needed. But as far as an intangibles teammate, a team first guy, the Jrue Holiday acquisition, I think it really, really helped Team USA.
Yeah, it goes to show you the way they put that team together. As far as, you know, they got their players that they had that were superstar level players, but the role players they put together. And I think Holiday, I mean, defensively, he was so good, and he attacked the basket. You know, he didn't settle for threes all the time. You know, a lot of times I saw him get to the rim, and a lot of teams were so spread out defensively that there wasn't a lot of shot blocking except when you played a France. But most teams were spread out, and they didn't really have that shot blocker. So he just went in there and he wreaked havoc. You know, his finishing package and being able to set up defenders, he was inspirational to watch. And like you said, coming off a really long season when you have to deal with COVID and all this other stuff, goes to the finals, and then, you know, gets on a plane and does what he does, and at the level that he sort of, you know, look at his stat line. I mean, he contributed throughout the whole games. It's pretty cool to watch, man. I love guys who can compete or are tough. You always hear the great stories. You never really hear a bad word about him. Great teammate, competitor, you know, plays both ends of the floor. And it was great. Imagine winning a championship and, you know, going winning a championship and then getting on a plane and winning an Olympic gold medal. I mean, that's phenomenal, man.
Yep, sure is. And just to finish off this USA breakdown, I think they noticeably stepped up their defense in the third quarters. Obviously, championship quarter, most people will say, but historically, the Team USA, they were tough for us back in the day because they had so much athleticism. They'd basically meet you at half court, at least the Krzyzewski era of Team USA, and they would force 20, 30 points off turnovers. This team wasn't really that. They were more that half court, we're going to lock you up in the half court. But then when they got down, especially in that Australia game, they really stepped up their defense, and that's when they broke the game open. So it was just interesting to see. They really extended their defense to the half court line. They got some steals, and then whenever you get Team USA out in the open floor in 3-on-2, you know, or 1-on-0 situations, you're going to get dunks, and you're taking the ball out of the net demoralized because those dunk plays in a 1 minute spurt just can absolutely take away your confidence with ball handling and trying to get in your sets. And I think that's what happened to Australia. But yeah, credit to the US. They looked down and out versus Australia, and they came back. We'll get to France. They finished second, getting the silver. Good tournament overall for them. You know, they were expecting to win it, much like Australia were, and they just fell short. The gold medal game for me, I never really felt like France were in it. They just couldn't get a rhythm like they did the first time they played Team USA, and they probably stole that first game, to be honest. We spoke about it, a 15-2 run in the last couple of minutes for France, stole them game one of the Olympics. So US had pretty much full control of that game for 30 odd minutes, and they had full control of the gold medal game for the most part. France made a game of it, got it down to a 3-point margin, and then the US went on like an 8-0 run or something like that and got it back out to double digits. But the US stuck to what they did. They switched 1 through 5. They let Gobert catch it. You mentioned off air, they were noticeably letting Gobert catch it with a guard on him in the paint and then just fouling him, and he missed. What did he shoot from the line, Pro?
6 for 13.
Yeah, and that was the point where they were trying to surge a comeback, so it just stymied any rhythm they had, and then it became we need to shoot a bunch of threes to try to get back in this. Fournier shooting a three just over half court with a couple of minutes left when they were still in the game, and then they were down and out. But credit to France, I feel like they battled. They got some tough guards, DeColo and Fournier signing that big deal in New York. They're two tough guards that get up in you, and a lot of athleticism on the wings with Rudy protecting the basket. I feel like they're probably missing piece is a stretch 5 for their future. So I think they're going to have to look to, at times, you know, Gobert is one of the best defenders in the league, best paint defender, rim presence, and you take him out and there's a noticeable absence on guys getting to the rim. But the way the game's going, you got to have something else in your bag where you can have a Jock Landale type or someone along those lines that can't just stretch the floor for periods at the 5 spot. That's just the way the game's going. So I think that's their adjustment. But how did you find France this tournament?
They competed every game that I saw them play. I mean, DeColo, even though Gaze killed me on the fucking pick, you know, a couple of weeks ago, like I thought he was an X factor for them because like you expected Fournier and you expected Gobert, you expected Batum, but I thought he gave them a sort of an impact with his passing, his scoring at times. and ability to make shots. I thought the switching for the United States was just constant, and they were taking advantage of it. They took advantage of the last game they played and the win and in the gold medal game as well. I just thought if Gobert made his free throws. Now, look, it's easy to say he missed 7, they lost by 5, but I think the USA, if he started making his free throws, probably would have, switched up some things they would have done, and they probably had to handle another defensive rotation or another defensive strategy. But I thought that it's such an Achilles heel for any quote unquote superstar that's going to have the ball in their hands at some point. I think that's an Achilles heel for his game. Look, he doesn't have to be Hakeem Olajuwon when he catches on the block. He's not going to be a post-up player. But if he's going to be a roller, and especially in crunch time, I don't care if it's Olympic competition, NBA playoffs, you're going to get wrapped up, especially if you can't make free throws. And I thought that, that was such, for the United States, they kept on fouling him and fouling him and fouling him. And you were expecting Durant to get in foul trouble and Booker to get in foul trouble and all these guys to foul out or be, France really take advantage of that. And I was texting back and forth with my friends during the game that were high school and college coaches. And they're like, why do they keep switching? Why do they keep switching? I said, look, if Gobert's only going to make one free throw every time down, then it's 1 point per possession. That's what you really want, 1 or less. So take advantage of it. If they're not getting 2 or 3, that's what you want until he starts making free throws. And I thought that was a big part of it. But, even Yabusele, the guy that used to play for Boston, he came up big. He made 3 threes for France. It was I thought they competed. I thought France was really good to watch. I didn't have them meddling when we started doing our predictions, but man, they were great. I really enjoyed watching them throughout the tournament.
Yeah, just a solid team. I think some good pieces. They got length, athleticism. We saw that length come into play against Slovenia in the semi-final where there was a layup. I think it was by Prepelic and got by Batum and most guys would lay that up normally, and Batum didn't quit on the play, blocked the potential game-winning shot, would have went in, obviously, and they just have a lot of length on the wings, and they would have been a tough matchup too for Australia if we got them in the semi as well, I think, but I feel like we would have got past France, but the US. Slovenia, the last team we'll go over, they finished 4th. Last team we'll go over before we get to Australia. They finished 4th, and it looked like Doncic just fizzled out against Australia, which we'll get to shortly. But they overachieved, in my opinion. I know you got Luka Doncic, so gold medal should be your goal at all times. But to come through the qualifying tournament, not having an easy route to the Olympics and carrying that momentum, everyone knew they'd probably make the quarters, and then beyond that, who knew? But then to come in and have a chance at a gold medal potentially, missing that by a play like I just mentioned by Batum, and then having a tough bronze medal game against Australia. I think they really, really did well. One tidbit, bro, I'm not sure. Do you know much about Mike Tobey?
Fran Fraschilla, who's a commentator for ESPN and he did a lot of the games. He's a big international guy. He kept on mentioning him. He went to Virginia, right? Wasn't much of a shooter, made 4 threes or 5 threes his whole career or something like that. And then I guess he's been the sort of story of the tournament, correct?
Yeah, he 2016, he graduated. I think he was a 4-year senior. Played, I think, in the G League for a year or two. Bounced around, fringe NBA guy. I think he finished the tournament at 16 and 11. Really athletic, really, really good. And paired well with Luka. Goes back to my argument of I feel like Luka almost plays better with a Dwight Powell, Mike Tobey type roller at times than a pick and pop Porzingis, because it's just easier. It's easy. You just know what Porzingis is going to do. So you're just like, okay, you're going to pop. We can switch 1 through 5. We can half blitz Luka and get back and rotate. Whereas when you've got a guy rolling while Luka's going downhill, I think it's just better for his strengths. But that's a story for another day. But the reason why I bring up Tobey is because I have no idea how this dude got Slovenian citizenship. The shit is ridiculous. So he played 2 years in the States, which puts him to around 2018. He's been in Spain ever since. And somehow he has Slovenian citizenship. So
it's fantastic.
I think FIBA are taking the piss a little bit by granting that one. And that's probably more on a lot of these European countries are much stricter with their citizenships, looser than in Australia or in America, where you have to generally go through the normal process. Even if you're a potential Olympic gold medalist in Australia and you go to the government and say, hey, this guy's got they'll be like, yeah, cool, put him in the line with the rest of the people. We might get you sped up by a couple of months, but you're still going through the 3, 4, 5 year period, same as the US with green cards and citizenship. Whereas, in Europe and even Asia to an extent, they're like, oh, potential gold medalist, cool, 1 month citizenship. And I made a joke on air. I'm not sure if Tobey's stepped foot in Slovenia before their training camp in his life, unless I'm missing something. Someone will tell us, but I don't think he has heritage because Mike Tobey doesn't sound very Slovenian. But yeah, just an interesting one with the way FIBA goes about it with the citizenships. And, he was a really good player in the tournament, but I know, he doesn't speak a word of Slovenian, and just thought I'd ask if you knew if he had any ties there.
Yeah, he has ties to the currency of that fucking bag he probably sent somebody to get that passport, man. I mean, shit. He's like Jason Bourne. He goes to some fucking, some Slovenian bank with something that's fucking like some microchip that was put in his fucking hip. And he just fucking, he has like 9 passports. We'll call him Jason Bourne from now on. So Michael, Jason Bourne, Tobey, whatever the fuck his name is.
I'm just trying to figure out if anyone knows the story, feel free to message or email, because I want to know the connection. Like, did he have a Slovenian coach in Spain? In a G League? I just want to know. There has to be some sort of connection. It's just weird. It just like literally just came out of nowhere. It'd be like, hey, China recruited this kid from, Australia that was born and raised here and can't even speak China, whatever it is, right? And you're just like, wow, I just love to know the story behind it. And if there is legitimate, I don't think it is legitimate that he has roots or anything like that, but I don't know, maybe his dad was a businessman there and spent 15 years and he gets citizenship by descent. Can't be too ignorant to that fact, but yeah, it's just a strange one I thought I'd bring up. But yeah, look, Luka Doncic, I think he wore out. He had a we can call it a pretty bad bronze medal game and hurt his hand potentially in the semi-final playoff against the all protective coronavirus perspex we see on most in most arenas now. Tweaked his wrist or his hand. I think he's had problems with that one before pro as well. That wrist that looked like he's had it taped up numerous times in numerous games of his NBA career. But yeah, just they just ran out of gas. I think the emotional letdown of probably being in that gold medal game if it wasn't for a great play by Batum, and I think that's where Australia was the last 2 campaigns, of the emotional letdown of losing a semi-final that you've had full control of, which we did in 2019. In 2016 we didn't, but in 2019 we should have won that game. And then you kind of let yourself down again in a bronze because not that it doesn't mean that much, but it's just a hard psyche. You're not playing off for the finals. So how did you see Slovenia's tournament? Did you have them? Well, you didn't have them picked in the 4, did you? But did you think they go this far?
No, I did.
Oh, you did?
That's the only fucking one I got right. I mean, I had Australia, United States, and them winning the bronze. I mean, I thought just because of Luka. Look, I think Luka's one of the, even though he hasn't won an NBA championship yet or advanced in the playoffs yet, I think just he creates opportunities to win. His game isn't perfect. A lot of people, some people love it, some people don't love it, but his ability to make plays, pass the ball. I mean, he's got. I haven't seen many players of better vision that ever play the game, in my opinion. And he just makes plays for other people. He does dominate the ball at times, and his shooting's up and down. And you got to live and die by that. But I thought that if they had a chance because of him, and like you said, he's better with a bunch of players that spot up, roll. He's not good with a player that dominates the ball. And he needs to be the one. That's why I named him the Matador when I was in Dallas, because he loves playing to the crowd. He loves to do anything to make the crowd happy, which is win games and make plays. And the guy he can make any type of shot. And that's why any shot he takes, you got to look up and go, holy fuck, because the guy is just ridiculous with making shots. Now, he ran out of gas. I think the wrist was bothering him. And look, his shooting's up and down, and then you get a bad left wrist on top of it. Maybe that had a lot to do with it. He was probably tired as well. I mean, I'm not big on usage rate, but like just what he had to do to get them there, it was very impressive. I probably gave him 3 compliments in my whole year I was with him. So I don't want to go too overboard with it, but the guy's been really good, fun to watch. I mean, 48 points opening game, didn't lose a game until, 16 in a row with his national team. And, people a couple of years ago, they didn't even think they were going to qualify, because they didn't qualify. I think they had to qualify late to get in. So all that, I thought it was tremendous. I mean, they just didn't have enough. Australia was killing it, and it was close to most of the game, but the plays that Australia made, they just had too much at the end of the day. But Slovenia, I mean, look, you got Luka there. Obviously, you can get anybody through with a fucking passport there, so they could probably recruit worldwide now. They're like a Christian academy in the United States. They'll have 9 people from 8 different countries. But I think that they're a power to be able to compete to medal in the next probably 2 or 3 Olympics. So it's pretty interesting. They're sort of their future going forward.
Yeah, and all on Luka, obviously. If he doesn't play, then you don't even probably have him in the court.
Oh, no, fuck. No.
Yeah.
No chance. No fucking chance.
But great way. We'll finish with Australia and get into them a little bit. Great way to end their campaign. Like I said, the psyche is the hard one because you go into any tournament, any NBA playoff series, whatever it is, to finish first, to be the last man standing, the last team standing. So you lose that semi-final, which is demoralizing. We had control of that game, I felt, in the first half and let it slip a little bit. We'll get into that a little bit in a second. But to bounce back and then have to be like, okay, now we're competing for third and we want to treat this like a gold medal game, it's a psyche shift. And that's what we probably struggled with the last couple of campaigns. And to the Boomers' credit, it was still a chance to set history. Never medaled before at an Olympic Games or a World Championships in the men's basketball. And for them to set the bar now, Paddy Mills talking about it yesterday on an interview, we've now set the bar for what is the minimum standard for Australian basketball. It is to medal, and you hope 2024 is a gold or a silver, and you now have a goal for those young kids coming in through the program and the guys that are going to be back to aspire to and beat. So that's important. Paddy, I mean, was sensational in the final, 42-9. Shot it a lot, but it just looked like he was at a point where he's like, I'm not going down in a 3-4 game again. And whether I shoot us out of the game or shoot us in the game, it's going to start and stop with me. And he carried the team on his back. Whenever we needed buckets, Luka made a little run late, hit some big threes. Paddy came down the other end and went bang, bang, bang. And it was awesome. That was awesome. I think it finished the right way. But that game specifically, I think Luka was just worn down by our defense, worn down by the tournament, and then having to face Daly to start the game for a couple of minutes, hounding you, and then Matisse was just sensational. And we didn't really double, which I was surprised at times. We switched 1 through 5 a lot. Even in some of the timeouts for the Australian team, we heard coaches telling Jock Landale and Nick Kay, contest it, do not foul. And they were living with that step back cha 3, and he didn't shoot it well in that game. And on top of that, he had 8 turnovers for the game. So he had 8 turnovers. He shot 7 for 20, and he was a -16 pro. So the Boomers did a fantastic job there as far as the bronze went. But I'm going to circle back to the USA game. That was a tough one because we were in full control for, I think, 16 minutes of that first half. And a portion of that game was lost in the last 3 minutes of that half, the first half, because we had a 15-point lead that then came down to 3 going into halftime. A lot of momentum was lost. We had to finish that off properly. We didn't. We had some tough calls, but that's where that game was lost. And then they turned it up in the third quarter, the USA team did, and really applied a lot of pressure. I felt like we could have taken a timeout early. Now, the timeout game pro is really hard in FIBA. You have 3 timeouts, and we had 3 timeouts in the second half. And, being up in that quarter to start, you're probably thinking as a coach, this is going to go down to the wire. I need to save my timeouts. But they went on a big run in that third quarter, and I probably would have burnt one early if I was, looking back. A few other notes I had: Joe Ingles got going early, hadn't had an up and down tournament consistency wise, but came out, notably to be aggressive, knocked down 2 threes, and we didn't go back to him. And that, even though we were flowing and had a lead, I felt like at times we had guys come in that made great plays, and we really should have looked to continue to go to that well within the offense. Chris Goulding was the other example. He came on at one point, hit 2 threes in a row. The third one, they fouled him. He knocked down 2 out of 3 free throws. So he had 8 points in a minute, and then he got subbed. Because of the rotations. And they were a couple of little tweaks that probably could have changed things a little bit, but look, we went down by a big margin at the end. I don't think it would have changed a whole lot, just thinking out loud and spitballing. But that's where I saw the game lost. And then Team USA just turned it on. We turned the ball over in the third, and the game was just out of hand relatively quickly. It was a 4 or 5 minute burst in the third, and the game was pretty much over. And to our credit, we battled, and like I said, went on to a bronze medal game. But how did you find the Australia-USA semi-final?
It was a hell of a game. And especially in the first 2.5 to 3 quarters. I thought that Australia did a great job competing, making shots, being aggressive. They did the best they could defensively. They did obviously a very good job, probably 80% of that first half. And then Kevin Durant happened. He just kept on making play after play. Look, he shot 1 for 7 from three. It's not like he made a million threes, but he just got to his, mid-range game. He didn't get to the free throw line a lot, but that mid-range game killed them, and they just kept on. They just sort of kept on, taking advantage of Australia not closing, and they had to. At some points you got to do that. And like you said, Joe Ingles came out hot. He made his first 2 threes. And his ability to make plays, it's not like he's a one-trick pony, right? Like, it's not like he's just a three-point shooter. I mean, the guy's an exceptional passer, playmaker, and he could sort of get you spread out and make plays for other people. I thought Wandale had a pretty rough game, semifinal for sure. He was a little bit off of his game. The missed dunk put back, a couple of missed shots. I think the frustration got to him a little bit, and it just was a little bit too much to overcome. I don't think it's one person that obviously cost him this. It was a team effort, but you think that you have him. It's 15. We've all been in those situations a million fucking times. You look up, it's 15. You think everything's fucking great. You're thinking about what pose you're going to make on the fucking podium, winning a gold medal. And 2 seconds later, you're only up 3. And, it's frustrating, but just to be in that moment though, to have that, to be in that semifinal situation is exciting, but you got to be able to close. And look, United States wasn't going to go down swinging. Like, Booker made plays and Durant made plays. And I thought defensively, Green was okay. Draymond was decent, but I thought when they made more of a push when Bam was in the game. I thought he gave them a little bit more rim protection, even though he didn't get any blocks, but I thought he just gave them a little bit more. And I thought they made a few more plays when Bam was in the game versus, when Draymond was, as far as just sort of making a push. But it's frustrating for Australia. But look, to be able to medal, that's great. To be up by 15, in the first half. I mean, I wonder how many teams, if you can go back, since 1992, had the United States down 15, besides that, the team in 04. But there aren't many teams that got to do. I mean, maybe in the first quarter, first couple of minutes, you punch them in the mouth. But to be up 15 in the second quarter, even though it's not the game, it is impressive. But obviously, it just wasn't enough.
Yeah, and I guess that'd be probably the frustrating thing for a lot of guys on that team would be that, we felt like we played very, very well. And even if that lead goes from 15 to 12 or 10 at halftime, the momentum hasn't really shifted. But I think that momentum was just so lost in 2 or 3 minutes. There was a bit of a deflating moment at halftime of like, shit, we had them on the ropes. We had them 15 down. I think we were trying to get it to 20, 25, made some mistakes, probably were present a little bit. And that's where the game kind of turned. But where to for Australia from here, I think only up. We have a lot of young talent coming through. Dante Exum was really good for me. I mean, he turned the ball over a little bit early in the tournament, but that was just from aggressiveness, and he started to figure out that portion of it late. And his defense is he's a very, very good defender. He doesn't get as much credit for that, but he shot the piss out of the ball from 3. I think he shot over 50% for the tournament. A lot of them were open because they were stunning off. Patty Mills' guy wasn't leaving Patty, so he'd fake it Dante, and Dante would be that guy that had to knock it down. But shit, you got to still knock it down, and he did. And, he's a free agent too, which is surprising. His issue is body and health, but I mean, you can do a lot worse than getting him as your backup point guard, I can tell you that. So hopefully he's played himself into a role in the NBA and can find some consistency and form there. But we have some older guys. Aaron Baines potentially could have been his last Olympics. Dellavedova potentially could have been his last. Joey's kind of on the brink of age-wise, but I'd be a gambling man and say they'll all try to go again. It's a matter of whether they'll be there in 24. Patty Mills will definitely go again, in my opinion. But then you have that youth of Jock Landale, Nick Kay's kind of, in his 20s, but Jock Landale and Matisse Thybulle. Ben Simmons, obviously the question mark we always discuss whether he'll play or not. Who knows? Josh Green didn't play a lot of minutes in this tournament, but I think he's going to definitely play himself into some minutes. And then, of course, Josh Giddey. So the future is very, very bright for the Boomers. And I think, as I said earlier, the bronze now is the minimum. We need to get to a semi-final at worst, and then try to always get a medal every tournament. Otherwise, it's not an achievement. So I like that. Finally, real quick, who was your surprising team of the tournament? Doesn't have to be someone that won a medal. Who was just someone that surprised you that you didn't think would do as well as they did? For me, I'll give you my one. Mine was Italy. They came out of nowhere. They qualified. They beat Serbia in Serbia out of that qualifier of death that they had. No one picked them. I sure didn't out of that qualifier. I thought Serbia or even potentially anyone else. They came through that, and then they got to the quarterfinals. They were in our pool, of course. They almost beat Australia. We only beat them by 3. They played a very good game against us, and then they went down to France by only 9 in the quarterfinals. I think they as hard as it is finishing 8th, they overachieved, and they had a pretty good, well coached, solid squad. So I was impressed by them, pro.
Yeah, I mean, Italy was very good. I mean, they spread the floor, they made shots, they competed a little bit more than I thought. I definitely give them credit for that. I still got to go with Slovenia, man. I mean, I don't think anybody, like Luka, everyone probably thought Luka was going to score all these points, and they weren't, they may not even got out of their pool play. And, I got to give it to them to making a bronze medal game and putting them in a position. They probably should have been in the gold medal game. And if you just look at it from talent standpoint, individual talent, you take Luka out of the mix. I mean, what do you have? I thought Dragic was playing. I thought the other Dragic was playing up to about 2 games ago. And I didn't watch them play. I just saw the fucking stats, I'll be honest. So I'm like, Dragic is fucking playing well. Well, it's the wrong fucking Dragic, you fucking jerk off. I mean, it takes me 3 hours to watch 60 minutes, so I ain't the smartest motherfucker on the planet. But I thought Slovenia was really impressive just to get to where they got to. And if you take Luka out, I mean, it's like me being on this podcast without swearing, right? Slovenia without Luka, but I thought
go together.
Yeah, no shit. I thought Luka was good. I mean, I thought the team was good. They played well. They competed and to put themselves in the position, to do what they did. So I thought they were impressive.
Yeah, I would agree. I think either or, but Italy was one that just stood out. My underperforming team, pro, would be Spain. Whenever they don't finish in the top 4, I think for them is an underachievement. They are an old aging roster. Rubio had a hell of a tournament. He's kind of like the Patty Mills version in Spain. He just plays much better for his national team than he does for his club. But they were probably the underperformers just because you generally see them as a top 4 contender every tournament.
Yeah, I compared them and Argentina, just because of the history of those 2 teams and those 2 countries in Olympic competition. And, Argentina, we talked about them a couple of weeks ago. I just didn't think they had enough, to compete with. They just basically had Scola and, a bunch of young guys and some players running around. But, and they tried their best and competed. But Spain, I mean, not that they, in my opinion, they didn't underachieve in the sense that you expect more because of their Spain, and they had the Gasol brothers forever and Rudy and, they had Rudy Fernandez and Rubio and those guys, and you expect them to do more, right? And they just didn't. You would want them to be in sort of the gold medal competition, Final 4, final game, but it was a little bit melancholy not to have them in that chance to win a gold. So I guess they'd be the underperforming team.
All right, that's the Olympic wrap. Another one in the books. Congratulations to Team USA. Congratulations to France, and congratulations to Australia for all getting a medal. And we'll see how, Paris is only 3 years away, and let's hope coronavirus is over by then and we can have a normal tournament. We'll see how that goes. But on to NBA free agency. Now, bear with me, pro. I've got a list of about 1,000 names I'm going to read through real quick. So what we're going to do is I've got all the free agent signings here. Some of them are big names, some of them aren't. So bear with us, and then you can circle a few of these that we want to break down and chat about. Get you ready? Got your pen ready?
Well, Bogues, this is nothing. I just had a stress test the other day, and they read me a list of foods that I eat on a regular basis that I can't anymore. And this is about triple this list. But anyway, I have my fucking pen ready to go.
All right.
And by the way, the treadmill I had to run on had to take a stress test after I took a stress test. By the way, that's just another story for another day, but go right ahead, brother. You got it.
I got it. All right, here we go. Start with Jarrett Allen, a big one. He's agreed to a 5-year, $100 million contract with the Cavs. Carmelo Anthony agrees to a 1-year deal with the Lakers. Trevor Ariza back to the Lakers on a 1-year deal. Lonzo Ball agrees to a 4-year, $85 million contract with the Chicago Bulls in a sign and trade, which I have some news on later. Will Barton agrees to a 2-year, $32 million contract with the Denver Nuggets. Nicholas Batum, 2 years with the Clippers. Kent Bazemore, 1-year deal with the Lakers. DeAndre Bembry agrees to a 1-year deal with the Brooklyn Nets. Kem Birch, 3-year, $20 million contract with the Toronto Raptors.
Jeez.
Nemanja Bjelica, 1-year deal with the Golden State Warriors. Tony Bradley, 1-year deal with the Bulls. Bruce Brown Jr., 1 year, $4.7 million contract with the Nets, so he stays there. Sterling Brown, $6.2 million contract with your former Dallas Mavericks. Reggie Bullock goes to your former Dallas Mavericks too for 3 years and $30.5 million. Alec Burks, 3 years, $30 million to stay in New York. Jimmy Butler, expected to, I think that's confirmed now, 4-year max extension, $184 million range with the Miami Heat. Alex Caruso, 4 years, $37 million with the Chicago Bulls. John Collins, 5 years, $125 with the Atlanta Hawks. Zach Collins, 3 years, $22 million with the Spurs. Mike Conley stays in Utah for 3 years and $72.5 million. Torrey Craig agrees to a 2-year, $10 million contract with the Indiana Pacers. Steph Curry agrees to the 4-year, $215 million contract extension with the Golden State Warriors. Second guy, I think first guy, one of the first guys to do two $200 million deals pro, I believe. I think LeBron didn't because LeBron did shorter deals, I think. So I think he's the first guy in NBA history. I could be wrong. Let me know, listeners. Terrence Davis, 2 years with the Sacramento Kings. Sam Decker, back in the NBA, Toronto Raptors, terms not yet reported. Dwayne Dedman, 1 year with the Miami Heat. DeMar DeRozan, 3 years, $85 million with the Bulls. The Bulls are spending. They are spending this offseason. Georgie Deng, $4 million contract with the Atlanta Hawks for 1 year. Spencer Dinwiddie, 3 years, $62 million with the Wizards. Andre Drummond agrees to a 1-year deal with the Sixers, reportedly vet min, and that's an interesting one because him and Joel Embiid have a great relationship, as we know. Kevin Durant, 4 years, $198 million extension with the Brooklyn Nets, no-brainer. Wayne Ellington, 1-year deal with the Los Angeles Lakers. Bryn Forbes, deal with back to the Spurs, terms not yet reported. Evan Fournier, 4 years, New York Knicks, up to $78 million with bonuses. Rudy Gay, 2 year, $12.1 with the Utah Jazz. Taj Gibson, $2.7 million contract with the New York Knicks, so that's a vet min. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, 5 years, $172 million max with OKC. Devontae Graham, 4 year, $47 million contract with the Pelicans. I believe that's potentially a sign and trade. Danny Green agrees to a 2 year, $20 million contract with the 76ers. JaMychal Green, 2 years, $17 million to remain in Denver. Javonte Green, 2 year deal with the Chicago Bulls. Jeff Green, 2 years, $10 million with the Denver Nuggets. Blake Griffin stays with the Nets, which I assume is a vet min 1 year. Tim Hardaway Jr., 4 years, $74 million to stay with the Dallas Mavs. Mo Harkless, 2 years, $9 million to go to Sacramento. Willie Herman Gomez, 3 year deal with the New Orleans Pelicans. Numbers not public yet. Solomon Hill agrees to a 1 year deal with the Atlanta Hawks. I assume vet min. Richaun Holmes, 4 year contract to stay in Sacramento. Could be worth up to $55 million, so bonuses involved. Rodney Hood agrees to a 1 year deal with the Bucks. Taylor Horton Tucker agrees to a 3 year, $32 million contract to stay with the Lakers. Dwight Howard goes back to the Lakers, which I assume will be vet min. Andre Iguodala back to the Golden State Warriors. I assume will be the vet min. Reggie Jackson, 2 years, $22 million to stay with the Los Angeles Clippers. James Johnson, 1 year deal with the Brooklyn Nets. Corey Joseph, 2 years, $10 million to Detroit. Frank Kaminsky stays in Phoenix. Enes Kanter back to Boston. So he's gone Portland, Boston. That's an interesting tidbit. Furkan Korkmaz, 3 years, $15 million with the 76ers, so he's back there. Jock Landale, nice. 2 year deal with the Spurs. I believe it's a 1 year guarantee with a partial, if I'm correct. Alex Len, 2 year deal with the Sacramento Kings. Saban Lee, 3 year deal with the Detroit Pistons. Robin Lopez off to Orlando for $5 million in a year. Didi Lozada, former Sydney King, he opted out. His deal was opted out by both ends a couple of months ago. They've restructured that to a 4 year deal, terms not disclosed, with the New Orleans Pelicans. Kyle Lowry, 3 years, $90 million to go to the Miami Heat. Trey Lyles agrees to a 2 year, $5 million contract with the Pistons. Boban Marjanovic staying in Dallas. I assume some sort of vet min deal. TJ McCollum, 4 years, $35 million to remain in Indiana. Doug McDermott agrees to a 3 year, $42 million contract with the San Antonio Spurs. JaVale McGee, $5 million from the Suns. Patty Mills, 2 year, $12 million championship run with the Brooklyn Nets. He's going to be huge for them off the bench. Malik Monk agrees to a deal with the Los Angeles Lakers. Terms unknown as of now. Markieff Morris, 1 year deal with the Miami Heat. Mike Muscala, 2 years, $7 million with the OKC Thunder. Abdel Nader, 2 years, $4.2 to go to the Phoenix Suns. Raul Neto agrees to a deal with the Washington Wizards. Terms not known. Georges Niang, 2 years, $6.7 million with the 76ers. Nerlens Noel, 3 year, $32 million contract with the New York Knicks. He, of course, turned down a bag from Dallas when you were there, Pro, so he's lost a bit of money. Kendrick Nunn, 2 years, $10 million from the Lakers. David Nwaba, 3 years, $15 million, Houston Rockets. Semi Ojeleye, 1 year deal with the Milwaukee Bucks. And he was a Giannis stopper from Boston, I believe. So Giannis will be happy about that. Get a good defender in the lineup. Oladipo agrees to stay with the Miami Heat. I believe not for much, Pro. And he turned down a big deal as well, which we discussed numerous podcasts ago. Kelly Olynyk, 3 years, $37 million with the Pistons. That's an interesting one to me. Kelly Oubre, 2 years, $26 million with the Charlotte Hornets. Chris Paul agrees to a 4-year contract with the Suns that could be worth up to $120 million, so some bonuses involved there. Campaign staying in Phoenix for $19 million in 3 years. Otto Porter Jr., vet min deal with the Warriors. Bobby Portis, 2 years, $9 million to stay with the Milwaukee Bucks. Norman Powell, 5 years, $90 million to stay in Portland. That's a big one, and that's very, very interesting because I think some writing could be on the wall there by giving him that kind of money. Julius Randle, 4 years, $117 million to stay in New York. Austin Rivers, 1 year deal with the Denver Nuggets, terms undisclosed. Duncan Robinson, you called this a while ago, so did Strauss. 5 years, $90 million contract to remain in Miami. Derrick Rose agrees to a 3-year, $43 million contract with the New York Knicks. Ish Smith agrees to a 1 year deal with the Charlotte Hornets. Tony Snell agrees to a 1 year deal with the Portland Trail Blazers. Max Strus agrees to a $3.5 million contract with the Miami Heat. Daniel Theis, or Tice, however you want to pronounce it, agrees to a 4-year, $36 million contract with the Houston Rockets. Gary Trent Jr., 3 years, $54 million to stay in Toronto. PJ Tucker agrees to a 2-year, $15 million contract with the Miami Heat. Gabe Vincent agrees to a 2-year, $3.5 million contract with Miami Heat. Ishmael Wainwright, 2 years with the Toronto Raptors. Kemba Walker agrees to a deal with the New York Knicks. Specific terms of the buyout and new contract not yet reported. I'm not sure if you've heard any of those numbers, Pro.
No, I haven't. I think it's an over minimum, obviously, because they have the money to pay him. But I think with this buyout and things, I don't think it was that astronomical, but I haven't heard numbers yet.
Yep, okay. Hassan Whiteside, Utah Jazz. Let me not assume. Lou Williams stays in Atlanta for $5 million. Justice Winslow agrees to a 2-year deal with the Los Angeles Clippers. Trae Young agrees to a 5-year, $207 million maximum extension with the Atlanta Hawks. No-brainer. And the last one I have is Cody Zeller agrees to a 1-year deal with the Portland Trail Blazers. Pro, that's a mouthful, even for me. What do you take note of out of all those names?
Bogues, for me, it's more team. It's more teams of what the teams did and the contracts they shelled out. You got to talk about, I think we got to talk about Chicago because I don't think there's another team collectively that spent more money. Maybe some teams spent more on one player, with Golden State and obviously Atlanta and things, but man, did they spend a lot of money. What did you think about Chicago's pickups?
I'm not sure how it's all going to fit. It's just strange pieces. What is it? So they got Lonzo, DeMar.
They got Levine. Markkanen's a restricted free agent. They haven't done him yet. Vooch. Don't forget Kobe White. Don't forget Patrick Williams. They only had a second-round pick because their trades their picks went back to Orlando in the Vooch trade, but they got an interesting roster. I worry about teams, and it's so overrated sometimes to have cap room. Because sometimes you put yourself in position where you do things like this. And I'm not shitting on the whole trade or whatever. The signs and all the signings they made. Look, you basically got rid of Thad Young, who's serviceable, and Aminu, who's sort of broken down on his last legs, to get DeMar. So, you traded out salary. So it's almost like an even trade the first year, and then you got to pay DeMar and then the rest of the deal. Then don't forget you got Caruso as well. But you got Lonzo, who's up and down in his shooting. He's obviously on an uptick with that. You got Vooch, who needs the ball on the block. You've got DeMar, who's not really a three-point shooter, who's a playmaking mid-range player, which I'm okay with. But you got so many, and then Levine, who's a volume guy who needs 1 million shots. So
it's strange. It's clunky.
How does that work?
And then Vooch wants post touches. He's become more of a stretch 5 towards the tail end of his career, but he's still a good one on the block. I agree. And a little note, the NBA has opened an investigation into possible tampering violations involving 2 sign and trade deals completed in free agency. And one of those is Chicago's acquisition of New Orleans' Lonzo Ball. The other one is Miami's acquisition of Toronto's Kyle Lowry, sources told ESPN on Saturday. NBA will probe the NBA's probe will examine illegal contact among teams and players ahead of the opening of free agency, which is Monday at 6 p.m. And it basically goes on to say, specifically, the New Orleans agreed to trade Ball, a restricted free agent, to Chicago on a 4-year deal for $85 million, for Garrett Temple on a new 3-year, $15.5 million contract, and guards Thomas Satoransky. The deal is yet to be finalized with league office and could look different in its final form. So just a small note there that they've opened it up. Who knows? Like you said, it won't be anything drastic. I think the big names will still stay the same for the most part, but yeah, they haven't investigated Brooklyn and their staff hiring party houses on every road trip, but good old Miami and Toronto and Chicago, they're in the mix for some tampering.
I mean, Bogues, these deals, it's fucking nuts, right? Like, you got these sign-in trades, which obviously takes a little bit of time to do. You got to sign these guys to the right deals and make the trades work. And these things are done like minutes after the fucking trade deadline, like right after the free agency is open, right? You got all these contracts being negotiated like that. I remember being at a camp for Nike once, and it was that's when they used to stop free agency at midnight. So I'm at dinner. It's like almost 9 o'clock. And then at like 9:01, you see like Farouk Aminu agrees to 5 years, $35 million from Portland. You got like 18 deals being done in the first 2 minutes of free agency.
And it's the efficient pro. The negotiations were just very efficient in those 30 seconds that free agency was open. Are you being cynical? Are you thinking that something dodgy was done before free agency opened? That doesn't happen. Surely not.
That's more efficient than my fucking bowel movements on a fucking Taco Tuesday night. Give me a fucking break, Bogues. Come on, man. But this shit happens all the time. And you know what, Bogues? I don't give a fuck.
Exactly. That's the point. Yeah,
like cheating's rampant everywhere. They juice baseballs to hit 95 fucking home runs from Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa, and I don't give a fuck. Like steroids, I don't give a fuck. Like nobody does really. Like cheating rampant in college basketball, and it's never gonna stop. Nobody gives a fuck. Tampering, never gonna stop. They'll get burners like they're on the fucking wire. They'll get smoke signals. They'll send fucking rockets into space. They'll do anything to get an edge. It doesn't matter. But again, big market team goes down. They fucking cheat. They'll fucking put it on Minnesota, or they'll put it on Utah, or they'll put it on Detroit. And then the player stuff is crazy too, like the tampering that goes on with players to recruit other players. And you'll just never stop it. I don't give a fuck, but it is rampant. But I don't really care. What do you think, Bogues?
Yeah, I'll disagree with you with the drug cheating stuff. I'd suspend for life with drug cheats. That's kind of how I am. But yeah, the tampering stuff, man. Like, if you've got half a decent agent, he's making calls for you during the season when you're a free agent. He's kicking the tires at teams. Hey, you got some cap space. Do you like my guy? And that's what he's paid to do. And teams are going to engage. You have to be ahead of the curve. If you're waiting. We've said this a million times. If you're waiting for the day, we're that honest team that's waiting for the first minute of free agency to open to pick up the phone, you're going to sign no one. You're going to have the same team that you had last season minus a few players that someone else stole off you. So it happens. I don't think it's tampering to that extent. I think the league just needs to figure out some ways where it's just note it happens, man. Like, I don't know. Maybe it's if your team hasn't picked up your option or extended you and you're in the final year before your contract expires, maybe that's when legally you can have your agent can have discussions with other teams. Now, you don't want to have players already 1 foot in, 1 foot out, which happens anyway. You don't want to make that like blatant, but let's be honest, it happens. I think the rule around it would be what I just said. Like, you can start, if your team hasn't shown faith in you to extend you or give you that deal a year before your contract expires, once you're playing in that year pre-contract expiry, your agent should be allowed to be able publicly comment if he wanted to, and even talk to teams as much as he wants. But as you said, man, like it's rampant. The fact that they pick certain teams that they're going to investigate. It was kind of like when the Chris Paul trade got turned down. They were supposed to go to the Lakers. Like, the league gets involved all of a sudden, and it's just like just there's a bunch of different things going on. And I think it just needs to be the same rules for everyone. And that we know that just doesn't happen. So I doubt this deal gets rejected. I think they're just going to make a little example of them, fine them a little bit. And at the end of the day, even if a team gets fined $50,000, like the Lakers did when Magic was making comments and tampering, it's like, who cares? On the books, it's fuck all.
They're actually talking about, like, somebody told me, I think I read somewhere where they're thinking about possible like $5 to $10 million fines on this.
Well, that's the only way you can. If you're gonna police the rule, then you're gonna hurt somebody doing that, and then they're gonna stop doing it. If you're gonna fine teams 50,000 and 100,000 and put some stuff public, hey, we're shaming you, Miami. You text Kyle Lowry before free agency open. Here's a $50K fine. It's like, yeah, cool. We'll just that's part of the acquisition. We just paid $100 million for this guy. Do you think we give a fuck about the $50K? Like, so your point. Yeah, that's. If you're going to police it, do it properly. If you're not, it's just theatrics at this point, waving their arms, saying, "Oh no, everything's fine." We're trying to keep everyone accountable. Well, you can't do it with those small ass fines. But anyone else in free agency, anything else? I mean, the Lakers, man, is that one of the oldest rosters in NBA history?
Oh boy, yeah, they're really old, man, and they're really old. Like, Bogues, what do you make of it?
It's strange.
I mean, obviously they're saying Vegas is saying they're winning it. Obviously, they're favored to win the whole thing. Would you go that far and say that you would make them? I mean, I know we haven't analyzed it all that much, but like, would you think that they're a favorite to win it with the players they acquired?
I don't know, man. Let's read through them real quick. They got Kostas Antetokounmpo, Carmelo Anthony, Trevor Ariza, Kent Bazemore, Devontae Kakok, Anthony Davis, Jared Dudley, Wayne Ellington, Marcus Sol, Horton Tucker, Dwight Howard, LeBron James, Wes Matthews, Malik Monk, Kendrick Nunn, Dennis Schroder, and Russell Westbrook. And now let's go through these ages, all right? So I'm not going to do the names, but we've got 23 years old, 37, 36, 32, 24, 28, 36, 33, 36, 20, 35, 36, 34, 23, 26, 27, 32. But the key in this is the younger guys are guys that are probably not going to play much. So I don't know. I mean, there's a case to be said about having great veteran leadership. But number one, when these, if they don't win the chip and they have to blow this up, good luck, because you got no young talent. You got no one really of value. I mean, LeBron is valuable, but he's 36 and doesn't have that long left at a high level. Anthony Davis is probably your last piece that's very, very valuable. Russell Westbrook, of course, as a big name, but they're all, Davis is 28. So very old team. You better hire a training staff. They're probably going to need one training staff person per player, to treat guys and make sure they're ready. But I don't have them as the favorites. I still think that, even Phoenix, they've somewhat slightly retooling. They're still going to be a tough team to beat, and they've got some youth. I'm just not sure. I agree with you need the veterans on the team. You need a veteran presence or two. I like the Ariza acquisition. The Kent Bazemore one doesn't really make sense now that you've got Trevor Ariza, but then you got Trevor Ariza, you got Carmelo Anthony as well. There's just a lot of stuff that doesn't make sense. And as you mentioned, they were really stuck salary cap wise of what they could do, and they ended up doing. I got that one right. They did go all in to get another superstar. It wasn't a second tier star. They got Russell Westbrook, but I think they're pretty handicapped with what they can do. So it was a matter of getting these favorable vet min type contracts in because they had no money. They couldn't go outside their cap to go and sign someone for these smaller deals, right, bro?
Yeah, no, they couldn't. They were very strapped for cash of what they really can do. And it's a little weird to me. First of all, the LeBron and Westbrook thing, how's that going to work? With Rondo a couple of years ago when they won the thing, and he was a big part of their success in the playoffs, they took the ball out of LeBron's hands a little bit. And he hated it. You could tell he hated it, not having the ball in his hands. And now you have Westbrook that needs the ball in his hands. And look, Westbrook's a good player. He obviously put up numbers to prove it last year at sort of an advanced age with some injuries and things. But like, those two together are tough. Like it's, you don't have consistent shooting. They take tough shots. They need the ball. You got Anthony Davis, who's been injury prone the last few years. Then the old player versus signing Kendrick Nunn, Malik Monk. You got Taylor Horton Tucker, who they have high hopes for. I think he's an average to above average player. I never really saw the huge value. He's 6'4" and he's not really a great shooter or great playmaker, but he's not a bad player from time to time. But these players like Nunn and Monk, who had decent young careers, not great, but Nunn especially had some good years in Miami. I like the Dwight Howard signing. I mean, I know he's sort of he's sort of the epitome of everybody's jokes, but the punchline. But I think as you saw in the playoffs, like having that big come off the bench that could do some things. I don't think Gasol is going to play all that much. I think, because of the fact, Howard could still affect the game in small minutes, he'll be all right. But I just don't see it. I don't know. I mean, I'm terrible. That means they're going to probably win 80 games if I'm saying I don't really like them. But I mean, I think they're going to go deep in the playoffs. I don't think they're going to get out of the West, but you could definitely see them in a conference final. But I don't love it. They were handcuffed of what they can do, like we always talk about a million times. So getting the Westbrook deal actually wasn't the worst thing ever. I mean, what did you really give up? You gave up Pope, who's up and down, Kuzma, who's definitely up and down. So you didn't really give up a lot there. Oh, you gave up Montrezl Harrell, but, I'll tell you what, Dwight Howard is probably as effective as Montrez was. Maybe Montrez is a little bit better on some of the things that he can do. Maybe he can, make free throws at a little bit higher clip, but I don't think they gave up much in the Westbrook deal. And their roster doesn't have much value at all, unless you can get something out of Horton Tucker, which I think his ceiling's a little bit, I think he's reached most of his development already. And none is okay, not great. Miami gave him away basically. And, in free agency, just let him walk. And Malik Monk's been up and down, inconsistent player, but yeah, I don't see him winning at Bogues, but I think it'll be exciting for LA. Look, LA is going to do what LA does. They're going to bring in a superstar, quote unquote superstar, and they're going to try to get the biggest name they can get. And they got it. I don't think they could have acquired anybody else with that stature, with the package of players that they sent out the door. So it was either him or Buddy Hield, which we talked about last week. In some ways, Hield fits a little better because he doesn't need the ball.
He shoots the three as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know how you play Russ and LeBron together. Like you said, they're both, LeBron's probably a better 3-point shooter, but yeah, I mean, I don't have them as a favorite. I'm probably putting Brooklyn as a favorite if healthy. They should be healthy and they should have an off season, and they've retooled pretty well in my opinion. Patty Mills is a huge acquisition for him, so I'd have them as favorites as of now. I still think Milwaukee's going to be in the mix. You got to give them the credit they deserve. They're going to be up there somewhere, and then out west, there's the West is tough. No one picked Phoenix to get through to where they did, but to have the Lakers as clear number one right now, I'll definitely bet the under on that one.
Imagine the poor fucking bastard reporters that gotta try to get sound bites out of LeBron and Westbrook. I mean, come on. You can get more out of going up and down Vegas, the fucking strip in Vegas and those mime fucking guys with stressing up as a Statue of Liberty that doesn't talk, and those mime puppet mime clowns. You could probably get more out of them because they ain't gonna say shit. So it'll be interesting getting some fucking tidbits out of that crew.
Yeah, it is. A few other notes I had. Jared Allen, 5 years, $100 million. It's good to see a non-3-pointing shooting big man get paid. So you don't see that very often when you put in Andre Drummond has quite a fall.
Folks, you like him?
Who?
Allen?
I like him. Yeah, I think he's very athletic, protects the rim. I think he's Rudy Gobert light, probably with a bit more offensive skill. As far as defensively, Rudy Gobert light, he's becoming that Rudy Gobert, protect the paint at all costs, really tough to score when he's in there. But I think he's got a better offensive game. So I think it's worthwhile. It's just nice. I just noted that. That was one of my notes. The other one I thought, Daniel Dice was an interesting one. Hasn't had the best couple of years. Was okay in Boston, was a solid role player for him. But Houston obviously sees something that we don't, giving him 4 years at 36 odd million. So that was an interesting one that I marked down. I definitely wasn't expecting that. I thought he'd be a, 2 years, 10 million type guy. But Houston obviously like him. The other one, Kelly Olynyk, hasn't done a whole lot the last couple of seasons. Detroit has made some interesting signings.
No.
They gave him 3 years, 37 million, and he's had some good years and some bad years, but the last couple of years he hasn't really played that much, and that was, I don't know if he had a market to get that from anyone else. So those two stood out for me as far as interesting on the downside. But our guy Jock Landale is the one that I'm excited about. I think the Spurs got a steal, and they generally get these steal deals. They're notorious for giving these gems that play overseas these 1 year, 2 year deals that are, but he did get the guarantee in the first year, which is great. he left money on the table, pro, which is why I like it. He had a big deal coming out of Turkey, I believe.
I bet.
For 2 years, guaranteed money, tax-free USD over there. So he's probably left around about $1 million on the table to fulfill his dream of playing the NBA. So you have to respect that. I think he's in the right system, the right organization. There's minutes there for him. Jacob Poeltl with the Spurs, not a great shooter, not an offensive threat, kind of the opposite of Jock. He's a really good defender, shot blocker, but not a great offensive threat. They signed Zach Collins and Doug McDermott, and Doug McDermott more of just a ratchet 3-point shooter, and Zach Collins is similar to Jock Landale, I think, probably in the way they play. I think Jock's got a better 3-point shot, so he's got minutes up for grabs.
Well, the $22 million he got, he could actually, he could take 18 of it and pay for his medical bills in Portland. So don't worry about that. He's sort of been on that fucking training. Blue Cross Blue Shield has been actually a fucking multi-cajillion-dollar company in Portland now. So, treating his injuries the last couple of years. So it'll be interesting. They don't really have, their roster's weird. They clearly don't have a superstar on the roster. At least you can make DeMar DeRozan, you could sort of make the case for being a borderline, really good player, borderline superstar. But it'll be an interesting sort of crew. You got, if you look down their roster, whether they got, Keldon Johnson, he played well this summer for Team USA before the Olympic Games and those friendly games. You got him, you got McDermott, you got Murray, you got, Porto plays a little bit. You got a guy, Londale. They do a lot with Lonnie Walker, Derek White, Thad Young will be okay. But it'll be interesting where they go with this roster. Now, they got a little shooting. I think McDermott's one of the best shooters in the league, especially off movement. I would probably take McDermott and his contract over, and I'm a big Duncan Robinson fan, but I'd probably feel a little more comfortable paying, Doug the money that they paid him versus $90 million for Robinson, especially Robinson didn't have a great year last year. But again, where do you go with that roster? You don't have the really high picks that they used to have. You don't have the great players with tremendous value. Maybe you make trades on disgruntled superstars and you sort of, you take a Derek White and you take a Lonnie Walker or you take a DeJounte Murray and package them in for a better, like a really good player. But how do you they're sort of in purgatory right now. They can't advance in the playoffs. They don't have this great young talent. They've got this collective role player deal, but they don't really have that great player. Where do you see that roster, Bogues?
Yeah, it looks like a pop roster minus Tim Duncan and Manu Ginobili and Tony Parker. They just got a bunch of guys that they're trying to figure it out with. They're trying to rebuild. I don't think they'll be any good. I think they'll be solid Spurs basketball. They'll steal some games just from playing the right way, but I don't think they'll make the playoffs. But I think it's just from a selfish point of view, it's a great opportunity for Jock Landale to put his foot in the door.
Fuck yeah.
I think it's one of the best places he can go, and I know they value guys that play the right way and play hard, so Jock's that guy. He's a team-first guy. As we saw in the Olympics, he had a few games where he didn't really touch it much, didn't pout, continued to run and play hard. His running of the floor is very underrated that people don't really talk about. He runs the floor at an elite level. If you watch games, soon as either he gets the rebound or somebody else, there's even times where he grabs a rebound, outlets it, and still beats his man down the floor. He loves running that middle of the lane, and that's something the Spurs haven't had for a while. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how he fits in. He shot the 3-ball well in the Olympics. The NBA range might be a little bit more puzzling for him, but I doubt it. It's only a foot. So I'm excited for him. He's a big fan of the show. He listens to us. I'm a big fan of his. Helped him when he first came into the national team as much as I could, and I think he's going to be one of the futures of the Boomers as well. So great news all around, and like I said, should be commended for taking less money to back his dream and go to the NBA. And a lot of times the NBA is right place, right time, and sometimes you just have to eat a bit of a shit sandwich financially to try and get your foot in the door. And I think he's made the right decision. But good luck to Jock. Best available free agents left, bro. Dennis Schroder, who we talked about on the pod 5 or 6 eps ago, turned down a bag. Was it roughly 80 million, if I remember correctly?
84 million. I think it was 84 over 4. So it was $16 million a year.
He's in some trouble. The market has dried and the more reports I've read is he might have to do a 1-year team friendly with the Lakers to stay on because they've got all the leverage now to maybe even lowball him. I doubt that 80's even close to being offered by them. They can't, obviously, with Westbrook and that now. But that just goes to tell you, like, you're turning down big number. And realistically, how much more did you think you were worth? Even if you thought you were worth 4 years, 100, you're turning down 84 to get another 16. A lot can happen. You can hurt yourself in a workout. You can get clipped by a car. You could have a market dry up right under your nose. And shit, he's in some trouble.
Imagine you could have done 4-year 80 for, now again, I'm not a fucking capologist. I'll obviously admit that. But you could have done 4-year 84 with like opt out after 2 and get your value up, opt out and do this shit all over again. Like this fucking merry-go-round that these players like to do with these shorter deals. Like you could have done something like that and said, you know what? Fuck it. I'll stay with the Lakers. I'll do it. Maybe I'll do a shorter deal and then opt out early if I do well. If not, I have it's not like they were offering him 27 over 3. He's offering him fucking 84 over 4. It's a hell of a deal. And he could have opted out or signed a shorter one with the same, yearly money at 16. But instead, now you're ass out. If I'm him, the Lakers deal, now you got to deal with Westbrook. You got to deal with, he's sort of in that Rondo role now, where Rondo was taking those deals to come off the bench for the last few years. That's sort of where he is. Where does he go from here? Do you sign in Boston? Because they don't really have much at the point guard spot. They got Peyton Pritchard and Chris Dunn coming off the bench, who's sort of the point guard version of Zach Collins. He can't stay healthy. So, like, what do you do there? You go to another spot for like a 1+1 mid-level exception, $9 million, or a taxpayer mid-level at like 5.8, 1+1, and then opt out if you do well. Now you're really juggling this shit, and you're really he's gambling more than I was fucking taking that stress test and getting on that treadmill the other day. Like, You out of your fucking mind? Now you got like 84 fucking million. That's, like I said, you could always opt out early. They do all these opt-outs these days. Now, hey, look, there are winners in these things and losers, but it's not like you got offered 30 million. 84, you're not getting much higher than 84.
Exactly.
Even if you hit it. Yeah, that's crazy.
It's
crazy.
He's got a bit greedy. I think like I said, you can't criticize his decision because he's backed himself, but I think he's found himself in a corner now. He's going to have to take some sort of team-friendly deal. But a few other names. Dante Exum, still a free agent. Hopefully he gets picked up. Josh Hart, he's restricted. Laurie Markkinen, restricted. Paul Millsap, getting old. Who knows what he does. Hamidou Diallo is a free agent. JJ Redick, an aging shooter. Could be a vet min guy somewhere late in a roster pickup, maybe even a mid-season pickup. DeMarcus Cousins, free agent still. James Ennis, Isaiah Hardenstein, and Svi Mikulik, however you say that. But yeah, he...
Mikulik, maybe?
Yeah, Mikulik, yeah. That's basically what the premier guys left. Do you see any of those guys absolutely not getting a deal, or do you see most of those getting picked up?
I think most of those guys would take. I think they're just sort of waiting to see everything slow down right around now, where most of the deals have been done. Now you could sort of pick your spot. Like, when you're later in your career, like a JJ Redick, people, if you could stay healthy, which I'm sure you can, if you're JJ Redick and you're sitting there and you could definitely help a team with the shooting, you're just going to wait and see, like, where's the best fit to live, to play, to opportunity? Can I win? I think some of these guys would do that. And, to circle back about Dante Exum, I'll tell you what, the Olympics was so good for him. And this is why, I'm not going to beat the Ben Simmons thing to death, but any pro player that's thinking about not playing in the Olympics. And look, you could buy into national pride or not, but more like show the world that you're really good. And I didn't have much to think about with Dante Exum. I wasn't a big fan. Obviously the injuries and the slow production obviously weighed with that. And then you watch him in this role of helping a team win. And we talk about it all the time. The league is 80% role players, maybe even more than that. And, not many people have the ball in their hands is going to dominate. And he showed the world that he could guard people. He's got athleticism back in the left in the tank. He made some shots, and he played a huge role in winning. If I'm an NBA team, Like, why am I going to fuck around with some retread of a guy that I got to sign that's going to take 29 fucking shots? He's going to shoot every time he fucking touches it. He's going to be a pain in the fucking ass. This kid shut his mouth, got healthy, helped his team to a medal first time ever. You know, he's not fucking Oscar Robertson. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying that he could help a team and really showcase himself. I think he's going to do fine. I think someone's going to sign him. I think someone's going to sign him in the next few days. I'd be really shocked if this guy didn't come out not a nice little deal, probably a $2.83 million a year deal. I thought what he did, it just goes to show you could really up your value. Because I think everybody sort of tossed him out, me included. And that's probably why he did well that I tossed him fucking out. But he just showed that there is true value in playing in the summer and playing in summer league. He didn't work out with some Instagram jerk off fucking trainer, juggling fucking swords and fucking swallowing fire and putting it on Instagram. He fucking worked. He worked and he played for a team and he came off the bench and he fucking helped them. That was pretty good shit, man. It was good to watch.
Yeah, and I think he will as well. But the body thing is an issue for him, and it came up ginger on a few plays. But I think you gotta. It's such a low risk signing, in my opinion. He's not a dickhead. He's a team first guy. He's brought him to a lesser role with the Boomers at times, and played it fantastically, and did what he could, and actually earned more minutes as the tournament went along. So I've actually spoken to a few teams about him, trying to get him on a roster because I think he'd be invaluable. But we'll watch that space. Not many other. And by the way, I had to Google old mate's name. My Haluk is the way you pronounce it. So I apologize. I had to Google it and just say it the right way. But Dante will be. I think he'll be on a roster. I just hope he gets in a situation where he can contribute. Anyone else? I mean, JJ Redick, is he done? Does he get another deal?
Nah. I think JJ wants to continue to play. I think he loves playing. I think he just loves being a pro basketball player, and I think he likes competing. I'm not a doctor. I don't know any of his how his injuries are, if they affects his future. Here's a fucking JJ Redick story for you. I have him blocked on Twitter for some fucking reason, folks.
You blocked him?
I didn't. I did not. I swear to God, I did not remember blocking this guy. I've worked with him when he was in college at the Nike camp and the Jordan camp. I always liked him, listened to his podcast. And I guess one day they were talking about, they were talking in the train, somewhere in practice or whatever, about our podcast and me, my fucking tomfoolery, my history in Dallas. And he looked me up because I don't think he knows me by name, but he probably knows me by face, but those guys are telling him. And he looked me up and it saw that I got that he's blocked. And somebody fucking sent me the picture of him looking at it on his phone. I was like, what the fuck? So I guess I have fucking JJ Redick blocked. And again, I love the kid. Like I've not known him, but I've been around him since he was about 19 years old. And I've always liked working with him. I love him as a pro. I love listening to him talk about shooting. And this fucking guy, I got him blocked on Twitter. Now, there's no fucking chance. I don't give a fuck if I'm in a Cadillac with fucking cement shoes on in New York and some fucking mafia guy's about to throw me in the river. I am not going to unblock him.
What?
Because I will get fucking ridiculed up and down to my fucking dying day.
Come on, dude. If you did
I'm not unblocking him.
What? If you did it by accident with your fat fingers,
Dude, you know the shit I would get from the fucking Mavs, my fucking guys, the Mavs who like to bust my balls. Yeah, but
if it was obviously an accident, like if you actually blocked him because you were like, I don't like this guy or whatever, and then you're like, that's different if you renege on that. But if you did it by accident, if you're like, hey, everyone knows you're a big dude, pro. I've got big fingers too, so I sometimes hit things I shouldn't on that old phone. Like you get a pass. You get a pass.
Dude, how do you explain blocking somebody and not blocking them? How do you explain going through the process of blocking somebody? Like, it ain't like this. It's the button right on the fucking screen, and you hit him and you block somebody by accident.
Fat fingers. You clicked on his profile because you liked his podcast, and then you must have accidentally blocked him and not known. So it's as simple as that. You got to play the fat card.
I don't know. Maybe I thought it was somebody that had cholesterol-free chicken or something. I got pissed and I thought it was Redick chicken or something. I don't know. Fucking don't know. But I have that motherfucker blocked, and I have no reason to block him. So that's my Redick story.
We're gonna make this part of the pod a clip for Twitter, and we're gonna add JJ Redick in it, and we'll try to mend that bridge with old JJ.
Please
The
do.
last one that snuck by, not a big signing, but Bucks acquire Grayson Allen. I think it's a great move for them. They basically got him for nothing, cash considerations from the Memphis Grizzlies in exchange for guard Sam Merrill and 2 future second-round draft picks, a guy that didn't play at all anyway. And I think he's a good acquisition. They need more shooting and toughness. He's a great 3-and-D guy, doesn't need the ball. So just one that kind of snuck by with all the noise of big names. I think that was a smart little move by the Milwaukee Bucks.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, Grayson Allen is someone who, he had a checkered past with what he did at Duke and some of the, cheap shots that he did. And he's like one of those guys people love to hate. And he sort of turned himself into a pretty serviceable pro. I mean, I took him on my fantasy team last year, so I really paid attention to him. And the guy, he created things. And I think the Memphis Grizzlies, look, I think they should have kept him, but obviously they made a move. But I think the Memphis is going to be good. The moves they made, getting Steven Adams, and they made the move with Valanciunas. So they pick up Steven Adams, they picked up Bledsoe, and to put him with Morant and those other guys like Dylan Brooks and Kyle Anderson and the rest of, Desmond Bane and the rest of the team there. I thought they'd done well. But I think Milwaukee, you talked about it last year. You were worried about the bench. I was worried about the bench. And I think some other guys were too. And, to add a serviceable, tough kid like that can go, any night can give you 3 threes, 4 threes, a couple of tough plays. He's sort of like another Pat Connaughton type of player, different. He probably shoots it better. He does some different things, but I mean, those tough, gritty bench guys that really help them throughout the playoffs, I think he's a perfect fit. And they didn't really give up a lot to get him. So I sort of like the acquisition.
And worst case, if all hits the fan, he'll just fly kick you or trip you over anyway. So pretty good in the defensive end, but I like it. Well done, Milwaukee Bucks.
How about the Knicks? What do you think about the Knicks moves?
Interesting. Yeah, Fournier, Noel stayed there, right? He left some money on the table.
Yeah, Fournier, Rose. They just did Randall. At about 140 million, 115, which I think gets up to about 140. And then Fournier, and they redo Rose. For some reason, I thought they picked up somebody else that we're missing. Oh, Kemba Walker.
Yeah, Kemba Walker. They lost, what's his name that signed in Dallas? Reggie Bullock signing Dallas.
Bullock.
He was solid for them. But yeah, look, New York they just need some consistency, I think, with rosters. I think that's probably what they're trying to do, and they're going to spend some money. They don't still have a bona fide superstar top 20 guy, I don't believe. Fournier, it's a big investment for Fournier. If he plays anything like he does for France, that's a great signing, but he's been inconsistent in his NBA career, but very, very good player, I think. Kemba Walker, obviously very, very good, got him for nothing. D Rose, solid vet. Noel, solid role player. So look, Julius Randle coming off an all-star year. They're investing a lot on those guys. You hope they play with that same fire and passion, which Thibs will get them playing with on a nightly basis, I believe. They just need some consistency. So this was a no-brainer for me, keeping the same guys there. Build on that year, and then, hopefully they can get to that position where they're a, perennial top 4, top 5 team in the Eastern Conference year on year, and they can start pinching a few of those big name vet min contracts towards, the end of their careers, that they can come and help them. So I don't mind it. I think they kind of had to do it just to be consistent.
Miami's
a strange one to me. Like the Kyle Lowry fit with, they're going for an all toughness team. Kyle Lowry, Jimmy Butler. That's why the Robinson move was a no-brainer. You got to keep shooting there. Yeah, just an interesting one. I'm not sold on that. I'm not sold on it at all. I think it's going to be a watch this space, but I know it is a tough place. We talk about the cultural stuff, but they're very military-like there with everything going on. So it'll be interesting to see how Kyle Lowry, we know he's a tough player, how he fits in with that, being a max guy, because you have to be a unique specimen to play there from what I hear. It's very, very tough. I heard, during their playoffs runs, 2-3 hour practices were still the norm. So a lot of tired guys in that program, no matter how fit you are towards the end of the season.
Yeah, absolutely. And the one chip that they have left is to trade Tyler Hero if they needed to. Obviously, I'm not saying they should force him out the door, but if they had to acquire a player, he's got huge demand. I'm not a huge Lowry fan, and he's getting up there in age. I think they had to make a move to try to get they had to get as many star type players as they could. I know they sort of kicked the tires on Westbrook a little bit, but that contract was tough to move. They got Oladipo coming back if he can be healthy. I don't think he can be healthy throughout most of the year, so I think he's going to be a non-issue. Although I'm not a doctor either, so who the fuck knows with that. But I've always been a Miami fan for that reason. I think Spoelstra is one of the best coaches in the league. I just love what they do there. But I'm not a huge Lowry fan. And now you got Lowry, and he needs the ball. Butler needs the ball. It'll sort of be an interesting deal there. Robinson now's got this big contract. Look, when you're on a minimum deal and you're banging in fucking threes, they think you're the next John Havlicek. But you sign $19 million and you go from John Havlicek and, hey, let's sign the check and get him the fuck out of here because, if he can't produce. So that's believe it or not, I mean, I don't care about what your production was before that. When you sign that big deal, now all eyes are on you because now, there's no 2 or 3 off nights you could have. They're going to let you hear about it. And, sometimes with these deals, it's like buying a fucking car. It loses value right off the lot. So, and I'm a big fucking fan of Duncan. I'm just saying, like, he's got a lot of, he struggled a little bit last year, in my opinion, and he's got to carry them a little bit as well. Lowry's going to rest. He's not going to play most games, so he's going to rest a little bit, and there's going to be some times where he's going to have to step up a little bit. And same thing with Tyler Hero. He had a little bit of an off year. He had a little bit of an off year last year as well. So it'll be an interesting deal for sure down in Miami. I think they'll be a top 2, top 3 team in the East, and they'll have a chance to advance and try to get out of the East. It'll be tough for them, but it'll be an interesting mix for sure.
Yeah, I think the Duncan Robinson thing's, it's kind of Joe Harris 2.0. It's like he signed that deal before they had the super team, and now, he got somewhat of the blame for a poor playoff series for them not getting to the finals and not shooting the ball as well. So to your point, he signed that big deal and eyes are on him now. You're no longer that Pat Connaughton or that small deal that's knocking down threes. You're all of a sudden like, you have to knock these down for us. Like, we're paying you to do this. So it will be a shift in mindset for Duncan Robinson, but we'll watch that space. Summer League, what you got, bro? You want to discuss this a little bit for people out there that, look, it's not a reflection of the true NBA. It's a foot in the door. The level's definitely not near the standard of NBA games. Guys can kind of take it, how they've played there too highly of themselves kind of and come in thinking they're going to do the same thing when it's not the case, but it's what they've got in front of them. But there's a lot of intricacies, how contracts work in Summer League, a lot of guys not understanding the business of Summer League, favors on rosters. That's the one that I found interesting. So I had a star player, I think it was Michael Redd. He used to get, I forgot his name. He would get one of his ex-college teammates on the Milwaukee Bucks Summer League roster for like 2 or 3 straight years, So shit like that happens. There's promises. There's free agents that sign that might say, hey, I've got a brother that I want on the team. Master P played a year, don't forget. So there's a lot going on with Summer League, but break it. You've worked plenty of those. Break it all down for me.
Well, obviously now with COVID, it's a little bit different. They used to have like 2 or 3 summer leagues. They got 2. They just did one in Sacramento, a 4-team summer league. Now they're going to have the one in Vegas, which is all 30 teams compete. It's pretty exciting. It's their big marketing ploy to get eyes and ears and everything on all their rookies that are coming in the league. That's what they're pushing for. They're pushing for matchups. They're pushing for people. I've heard it's already sold out. You can't really get a ticket there anymore. They sold out pretty quickly. Obviously, people wanting to get out post COVID and trying to just get out into some sporting events. But I'm not a huge fan of Summer League, and for this reason, especially for players sometimes, because it's a false sense of where you are. Most of Summer League, you got a team, your team is going to be comprised of your first round pick, your second round pick, maybe a holdover from last year, a first or second round pick that didn't get a lot of time, small minute guys. So you got those 3 guys. Then you might have 1 player, 1.5 player on average that teams are actually looking at to really sign. The rest of them have no fucking chance in hell of making the team. There's somebody who's trying to, either a favor on the end of the bench that will never fucking play, has a dad that's, some, exec, or somebody's doing a favor for an agent or a player or someone like that. Or it's someone who's just really trying to up their contract overseas or in the D League and trying to get seen by them because it's an interview. it is a total interview because 30 teams are there. Every D-League team's there. I would say, half of the international teams at least are there scouting and then trying to get players. So they're trying to showcase. And the problem when that comes up is you're not really playing against NBA talent. It's not really even a D-League situation because at least during the D-League season, you have teams that are together most of the year and you have players that are veterans and sort of I'm not a huge D-League fan either, but it's a little bit more organized. Where Summer League, these guys have been practicing for about 5 days tops. And you'll have some of these players that are borderline NBA players that are picks that we may never make it past their first contract that'll average 25 or 30 because they're taking 30, 35 shots a game. And it's just a total shit show. First couple of games are pretty exciting because, they just want to play. They want to play in front of the lights. They want to play in NBA competition, quote unquote. But then after the second or third game, nobody wants to be there anymore. Some teams sort of bring it together and keep it together to win a Summer League championship. And that's great. It's sort of like being the tallest midget. But, sometimes people, players especially get a false sense of who they are. And instead of sort of trying to be efficient and play an NBA role and try to, make your team and think of it as a true business as, look, I need to stay relevant and make this career. But it always goes to cameras are here, Twitter's here, Instagram's here. I got to impress by scoring. So you got a lot of bad basketball that's going to be played. You got to have a lot of guys forcing shots, no passing, no ball movement. Even though the coach probably put in 20, that poor bastard assistant coach is coaching that, gets their one shot that they're trying to win a championship and put that on their resume and try to get themselves a job. But, those poor bastards are going to be trying to coach their asses off. And, it's just going to be, and a lot of times, not a great mix. But it's great for marketing for the league because the young players play against each other. But I'm not a huge fan because it's not great basketball. Players get a false sense of who they are. And, you'll see some exciting dunks and things. But, it's just sort of the beginning of it, really.
Yeah, and it's just tough because everyone's trying to get their numbers up. You got 2 rookies that are potentially on the roster or first round picks trying to play the right way, and then you've got 8 guys that are, trying to earn a roster spot for camp or get signed by someone else. So it is a very selfish style of basketball, and it is what it is. You just got to kind of take it with a grain of salt, and it's more, I guess, to see how the first round picks are going to go. But even that, you take with a grain of salt because, like I said, it's not proper basketball. Just one of those things that you got to observe, see guys' talents a little bit, but not read too much into it.
I'll tell you 2 quick stories that go in together. Guys that sort of had their heads put on straight when I was with Dallas. Like Dwight Powell, he came over in the Rondo trade, didn't play a lot, and then he goes into Summer League, worked his ass off for 2.5 months, 2 months or so for Summer League. And this guy came in great shape, gained weight, gained good weight, was in the gym twice a day, got his shots up, and had a really effective Summer League where he just played his role. He played a little bit more of an expanded role, but it just sort of, that you start to see, all right, this guy's a tunnel vision guy who is dedicated to getting better, working hard, and being in his role. And he's one of the smart guys that played his role in Summer League that he was going to play for the pro team and just sort of kept going from there. And he was a hard-charging dude who was, one of the more coveted rotation players in the league because, you know what you're going to get from the guy. He doesn't have an expanded sort of view of himself as far as what he really is in the league. And the guy's just sort of one of the most dependable guys. Same thing with, Dorian Finney-Smith. Like Dorian, undrafted player out of Florida, transfer from Virginia Tech. No one thought a lot of him as far as wow, he's going to be a player that could start and be one of the better defenders at his position in the league. But here's a guy again in Summer League, Don Cockstein, the director of sports psychology, myself, sat him down and say, look, you can go 2 ways with this. You could try to jack up shots like everybody else is going to do, or you can go play your role, spot up, shoot, straight line drive, and guard people. And you sort of have that sort of burned in your brain where now you're going to carry that all summer. You're going to get better as a shooter. It's going to come. It's probably going to be a 2-year, 3-year process. But if you have it, this is your role, what you're going to do. that's what's going to happen. He ended up beating out Justin Anderson, which we drafted in the first round, that we had more money in, we had more time into, and we were thinking that was going to be a pretty good player for us. And then Dorian just sort of had a more streamlined vision of what being a pro was, as far as like playing his role, staying in his lane and doing the things he needed to do. And now he's been a starter ever since he's been in the league. An undrafted guy probably had about a 9% chance. If you're just sort of doing the math of people in his spot in the NBA in the last 20 years, probably had a 9% chance of making the NBA for 1 year. Forget about, in year 7 or, year 6 or year 7 now. So, those are great stories in Summer League, but there's a lot of money being lost in Summer League because people have the wrong idea about putting up numbers. Now, I don't want to be a negative guy about Summer League, but you just got to see it for what it is. It's not like when fans leave Summer League, oh wow, our first round pick averaged 32 a game. Yeah, but the guys that were guarding him are going to be playing in Spain and fucking Iceland and fucking Portugal, and in Sioux Falls and Sioux Falls and fucking Quad City or wherever fucking D League cities they're going to be in. Like, sometimes you just get a false sense of where they are based on who they're playing in the surroundings.
Yeah, no doubt. And you can only play what's in front of you, but yeah, it's not quality basketball. I don't tune in. I might watch a few of the highlights or rundowns of how Josh Giddey's going, but other than that, I won't really watch, and I couldn't really care.
Giddey better give us a fucking shout out, Bogues. That's what I'm saying.
He will. All right, so we broke some news a couple of weeks ago that's just gotten on the news, really. Ben Simmons not returning calls as reported weeks ago by yours truly, which is us. Jason Dumas on Ben Simmons a couple of days ago. He's open to the California teams, is what I've been told. The new kicker is Joel Embiid has reached out to him several times since the end of the season, and he has not returned one call. He doesn't want to return to the 76ers. Damage has been done, which goes on to the conversation of the trade requests that we've talked about last pod, about them asking just absolutely insane things from teams. It's like, your leverage is gone. I mean, this is going to play out interestingly because from what they've wanted initially, which was reportedly they wanted Warriors 7, Warriors 14 pick, Wiggins and Wiseman plus future first round picks, like they're on absolute drugs. So to come from there to what I think they could probably get now, which is not much, I don't think a deal is going to get done, which then makes me go heat up some popcorn in the microwave and wait to see what happens at training camp, bro, because this is looking like it's going to be a shit show.
Well, I did read that they hired Dame Lillard's workout guy, Phil Beckner, who's as their shooting coach. So that just, Phil's one of the better sort of trainers for NBA players in the summertime, but his main client is Dame Lillard. So, I think that they're sort of they're trying to lay in the weeds and wait, if there is going to be a trade demand, which there isn't right now. If you're Dame Lillard, right, and you get your guy. Now, the history of doing this, because the Knicks have done it, Washington has done it, the Lakers have done it, where you hire somebody's workout guy or somebody's guy. It's probably like as many times as I say yes to broccoli when my wife offers it to me. It's probably like 0 for 15 on trying to hire somebody's guy to entice him to come. Like, that's a little bit different. But they're waiting on a Dame Lillard. They'll take McCollum if that's the last deal they can make. But I feel as though if they don't get a Dame Lillard type, they don't get a player that's in the top 15 in the league, that they're just gonna wait on it. And good luck to you if you're not going to trade this guy in the offseason for what's already transpired. And we knew it was happening. He was going to cut off. We already said it. He was going to cut it off, communication. He was going to start, tweeting out stuff on Instagram about his workouts, which I think I saw last week.
You got that one right, because I thought he'd lay low. I thought just with the backlash and the bad end to the series, and then not playing for the Boomers, I thought he's just going to shut it down for a bit. But you said no, he's going to be he'll be on Instagram with his shirt off shooting. And he last week there was the photos, so you hit that one. You got another one right. Shit.
Yeah, 2 for 97, not bad. But I don't think it's a bad thing to hire the guy's workout guy to try to entice him to come. To demand a trade at some point. That Lillard thing's gonna be bad at some point. It's just a matter of when. I don't think it's gonna happen for a little bit, but I think it's gonna come down to something. And if you could demand a trade, what have you. And for Portland, I think they can get more than Ben Simmons in a trade request for Dame Lillard. to try to get him, if there is a sort of a demand that happens. But the Ben Simmons deal for me, unless you're going to get picks, unless you're going to get a package of picks, you're not going to get a superstar for him. Unless it's a force out situation where someone's forcing their way out. You don't want this guy and you're like, all right, fuck it, let's just go. But you're not going to get a superstar player. If I'm somebody, maybe I'll give you somebody in the top 40, outside of an all-star type player, someone maybe, from 40 to 50. But I'm not giving you a superstar for Ben Simmons right now. Ben Simmons is a good basketball player. Don't get me wrong. I mean, he's an athletic kid. He's got vision. He's got size. But the shooting, and it's not even the shooting, Bogues, it's the unwillingness to shoot. That's way deeper than not having a good shot. Way deeper. And I think that's a problem. And then when you shut off communication to your team, that's even worse. So besides a package of picks or a player that's not really going to, McCollum might be able to help him, give him a different look. They got shooting around Embiid, but you can't make any moves. Unless you trade Embiid, there's really not a lot of players you could acquire. If you trade Tobias Harris, you're not going to get a lot for him. There's not a lot of...
Problem is they're in win now mode. That's a problem. The trust the process, we've tanked. They kind of have to get someone back. That's why I don't think they go the pick route. They'll get some picks back, but they need something back for this whole trust the process. You know what I mean? And I think Joel Embiid's not going to be patient and say, hang on, I'll wait 2 or 3 years for player X, Y, and Z to develop before we can compete for a championship again. He knows, his days are numbered to get to a championship. And I think that's the elephant in the room for him. That they're in a tough spot right now. And then if they don't get anything done by September, and then it's October, and then it's, then you're basically trading him for peanuts because, if it gets to a point where it's a stalemate about him not showing up to camp, what do you do then? That's what I'm saying. The closer this gets to training camp, and one thing about Portland that you mentioned, the Norman Powell deal. So they've basically given him a big bag of money. Maybe, there's some writing on the wall that they're probably hedging their bets saying, shit, if Dame leaves and we do get a Ben Simmons back, it'll fit nicely with a Norman Powell and CJ McCollum, right? So there's some things going on that you can kind of read between the lines. It'll be interesting to see, if it eventuates.
Yeah, and I agree with that. And I think Powell, I've heard that was a little disgruntled about just sitting in the corner waiting. I love Norman Powell. I think he's one of the better, borderline third option guys in the league where he can shoot it, he can drive it, he's tough, plays good defense. He's a hard-nosed kid, sort of PJ Tucker on steroids, just a guy who could guard people. He could shoot. He could create a little bit. So yeah, to have him, it would be a pretty good deal, for them. And if they do get Ben Simmons back, and just to surround him with more shooting and things like that. But again, I don't think Lillard's sort of forcing out. Now, maybe during the season, as that heats up, maybe he finishes the year, but McCollum, Dame's one of probably the more loyal players I've ever seen to an organization. He's, besides maybe Giannis and some of these other guys that played, 20 years ago. But because he's been there, he hasn't forced out. He's actually a superstar that actually had his coach's back. You never really see that ever, with many people at all. And he's been about the right things, in my opinion. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. But barring that, I think the McCollum thing sort of makes more sense for Philly because, again, unless you're getting a collection of players, like a collection of lesser players, I don't think you're getting anything better than McCollum. And you have got a coach who's not going to coach young kids. You got a GM who's never been around young teams before, ever in his career. They're always have been about winning now. Now, they've been in struggling situations. But Doc was on a couple of young teams in Boston, but he wasn't with young teams with the Clippers. And obviously when he took the Philly job and, he's sort of past that in his career. And Daryl's always been around veteran teams for the most part. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with that whole deal.
Yeah. We'll watch that space, but I just don't like the direction it's gone for Philly because I think it's, or Ben, really. I think it's just gonna end up looking ugly. But we'll move on, finish this one off. Let's get to stats, useful or useless. Kevin Durant, 3 gold medals, last 3 Olympics. Each gold medal game, 30 points, and 29 points. useful or useless?
Useful as fuck. Shit. I mean, gold medal games and that guy's doing what he's doing there. Yeah, I think that's pretty useful to me. I mean, that's a pressure game, as you saw with players who played in it the first time in their careers, and it's not an easy task. It's sort of like a first NBA Finals, right? Like it's big for your country, it's big for your individual value as a player wherever you're playing. And for that guy to do 30, and 29, pretty fucking solid. What do you think?
100% agree. Yeah, I mean, he shows up for those big games, and he's been the X factor for them the last 3 campaigns to show up in a gold medal game and drop those kind of numbers on a consistent basis, especially when they needed it. Staring down the barrel at times in that game, France making a run in the last one, and then he just gets it from them making a comeback and potentially taking the lead to a 10-point lead quickly. So I think that one's very useful. Next one, would you happen to know this? Lonzo Ball last season made more threes than Trae Young, Paul George, Bradley Beal, Chris Middleton, Devin Booker, Seth Curry, and LeBron James. And he averaged 14.6 points on 41, 38, and 78%. All career high, so he shot 38 from 3. Would you know that just looking?
Fuck no, I wouldn't. It's news to me. It's fucking news to me. I know he's improved his shooting a lot. He's improved his game a lot to go with his unbelievable passing. But the shooting thing's always been a problem. He's shot it, he had a weird technique shot, was way off. He shot it from the other side of his face, left side of his body. But no, I wouldn't have thought that. Bogues, would you ever thought?
No, that's the eye test. So he's a victim of the eye test of the way he used to shoot it. So everyone just thinks, it's that same thing. He's dramatically changed his 3 and he's shooting the piss out of the ball. Like, to say he's made more threes than Trae Young, Paul George, Beal, Middleton, Booker, Seth Curry, and LeBron James at 38%. So it's not like he's shooting them at volume now. It's not like he's a corner, make 1 for 2 each game, Tony Snell type. He's shooting at volume. So I credit that, and that's credit to StatMuse. At StatMuse, they have some great stats. So follow them on Twitter. But I think it just goes back to the big baller brand, the dad, that whole feel about all of that, and then his shot was heavily criticized and laughed at for years, and kudos to him. He's improved that, and that's an amazing clip, an amazing turnaround. But most people wouldn't know that. You would never, especially a guy like Bradley Beal or even Devin Booker, like feet set, great 3-point shooter. Trae Young takes some tough ones, but to have more makes than those guys at 38%, I think it's useful as can be. Next one. Okay, headed to the Spurs in the DeMar DeRozan deal is Thaddeus Young. Now, this is, I don't know if this is tongue-in-cheek by ESPN Stats and Info, but it's got a little wink emoji. But Thaddeus Young and LeBron James are the only players in NBA history to play 1,000 career games and average 13 points per game, 5.9 rebounds per game, and 1.4 steals per game, 50% on field goals, and 30% on three-pointers. Bro, useful or useless?
I'm a big Thaddeus Young fan, but 30% from 3 isn't really a big fucking accomplishment, to be honest with you.
But they've just lowered the stats, so it's like a minimum of 13, 5.9 rebounds, 1.4 steals at 50% field goal, 30% three-pointers. If you've played 1,000 games, they've obviously got LeBron's stats, and then try to find any player with 1,000 games, and it's just like, I think it's a tongue-in-cheek one because they've got a winking emoji. But to me, I like Thaddeus Young as well. I think he's a good player, great role player, but a useless stat to me.
Yeah, totally fucking useless to me, and it actually doesn't make him look bad. It doesn't make him look great. I mean, when you're looking at that, 30% from 3, especially in today's day and age, I think you're just fucking reaching. I think you're reaching.
No doubt.
Useless.
Fact or fake news? What do you have?
Bogues, the Boomers will finish better than 3rd in 2024 in Paris.
Oh, it's a tough one. Look, I think they will, but with these Olympic tournaments, the draw is what gets you. We theoretically should have faced the US in the final, but they dropped that early game, which put them best place second, and the draw was a bit clunky. Historically, we wouldn't have got them till they would have been in a different pool than us. If it was a 6v6 pool of Olympics, we would have got them in the final. So it all comes down to your draw and the luck of your draw, and when you're facing the better teams ranked above you, which right now are the US and Spain, which will probably fall now and will probably overtake Spain in second, and I assume France will be third or fourth. So I'll say fact, but obviously the note is it all comes down to draw. So I think we'll have a very similar roster, and we'll have to see how it goes. You?
I think you will. I mean, I think that if you look at the other teams, United States are just in their own class, right? And the draw is big. Don't get me wrong. The draw is big, and it's like an NCAA tournament where one game you're out. It's not an NBA series where you could take a game off and have an off night and still come back and win, or in a lot of cases 2 nights off. I do think just with the other teams that are aging, Spain's aging, France is going to be, Batum's going to be way up there in age. With his injury history and his age is getting up to Colo, you don't know where he's going to be. Gorbert's obviously a very good player, but they don't really have a lot of young guys in the mix, at least guys that I don't know about. Maybe you have Greece with Giannis, but they don't really have a lot besides Giannis. You have Slovenia, but you don't know where Luka's going to be with this whole thing. I know he'd probably want to play. God forbid you don't know, like if he had a long playoff run and he got banged up a little bit, do you want to risk it? But he probably would. But you don't know what that team's going to be like in 3 years. They'll probably have 5 guys from Spain, 3 guys from the United States, and 2 guys from Canada that will be quote unquote Slovenians by then. But, it will help them. But I think where Australia is with their young players, that are coming up, most of their top unit will probably be back, even if they take a 10-15% hit on their production. With their young players, Thibault's going to be much improved. You get Josh Giddey coming. You've got Kay who's there. You got Wandale who's there. And they're going to get better. They're still on the uptick in their career. So I think they're going to finish in the top 3. I think they'll challenge the United States again. And depending on what team the United States brings, they might have a chance again. To maybe challenge for that gold. But I think they could finish better than 3rd.
Next one.
All right, Bogues. Sorry about that. Ben Simmons will play for the Boomers in 2024.
I'm going to go fake news because I gotta go the under. I don't want to get my hopes too high until it happens. It just doesn't seem like a priority for Ben, and that's, I'm not criticizing him for that. If it's not your priority, as I've said on record, just call it as it is, move on with life. But I'm going to say fact. Fake news. Sorry,
fake news.
Will not. Yeah, so it's kind of like the girl you like keeps telling you you're going to go on a date, and then something always comes up. There's always an excuse. So that's where my mindset is. You?
Here's the thing. I don't care if Ben Simmons plays or not, because like you said, he's been a guy that really hasn't stepped up for the team ever. So he had plenty of chances to come play, and he didn't. Now here's the thing. I think he does play. Here's why. You set the table. If you went out in the first round, and then you've got guys that are aging a little bit, in 4 years from now, 3 years from now, what have you, to play in Paris, then it'll be like there'll be a lot of pressure for him to play, because if he does play, then he'd have to help not carry the team, but a lot of it will be on his shoulders to try to get you guys to medal. Now you guys already medaled. Those young guys are going to get better. It'll be a really good chance for him to make it, for them to even finish in the top 2. And then if he comes in, which even without him, they'll probably finish. They'll have a good chance, depending on draw, to be in the final 2. But now he comes in and he quote unquote saves the day, and no one's going to think about Joe doing well or Patty doing well or Wandale doing well. It's going to be, well, Ben. How that media giant that he's got behind him, that will be. I bet he does play in 2024 for that reason. Because now the table's already set, and yes, it's going to be tough.
Yeah, but it could be reverse effect though, pro. What if they don't make the middle rounds?
Yes, it
could be. Then what?
Yeah, it could be. Yeah. It could be. You're right. But you know what? I'd say he does play. I don't, like I said, I don't give a fuck, because I don't depend on a guy like that to play for the team, because he's had plenty of chances and there's no reason for him not to. Because you know what? He could have played. Now, he could have played and it could have been a different dynamic and you guys couldn't have done as well. But imagine if he played and you guys did make the final game, and then maybe you even win it. But forget about if you win it. He could have, for the tough year that he had, as far as the media that he took And now he said, you know what? Fuck all that shit. I'm not going to bury myself in a gym and cut everybody off and all that stuff. And I'm going to go out. I'm going to man up on this shit. I'm going to fucking put this team on my back, even though he wouldn't have, but I'll put this team on my back and I'm going to fucking kill it. I'm going to do it for forget about my country. I'm going to do it for me, but like, I'm going to do it. And I'm going to show people that I'm not a fucking, that I wasn't this, punk or something in the playoffs where I was afraid to shoot. You know what? I'm going to go out and be aggressive. He could have done that, but he didn't. And he didn't before that either. So, like, I don't depend on him to play, but I think he does play because it's an easier draw to get to the final.
Yeah. Fair enough. We'll see. We'll watch that space for 3 years. Next one.
Yep. KD will suit up again in 2024.
Fact. I like this one because I think he enjoys playing for the national team. It was the most relaxed I've seen him. Even, him and Draymond Green are going after anyone that doubted Team USA. So Draymond Green loves a screenshot, and he's screenshotted everyone's shit talking when they lost that game, and he's reposting it all on his social media. So I highly recommend you jump on there. It's a fun read, and he's just taking the piss out of all these talking heads on TV. But it just seems like KD has a genuine enjoyment, more so than the NBA at times. Like he just really looks like he enjoys playing for his country. So I would say fact. I think he'll go down as the winning. He already is the winningest US men's player, I believe. So he'll be potentially a chance for a fourth gold medal. So I would say fact, he will suit up again.
Yeah, I say fact. It's just the guy wants to play any game, anywhere, any venue. Like, he just loves to play. Like, for all the shit that people give him about the Twitter stuff and burner account and all that stuff, like, the guy wants to play fucking anywhere. Like, I remember meeting him when he was coming out for the draft. We went to EA Sports. I was with Julian Wright from Kansas, who was going to be a first-round pick. They brought a bunch of those college guys, Joakim Noah, him, Al Horford, Julian, and just like him working out in a gym at night, like, the guy just got after it I remember in the pre-draft camp, we got some gym in like off campus from Disney, and it's like him, Thaddeus Young, a couple other guys working out. I mean, the guy works out constantly, plays at Rucker Park, plays at, all these runs. I mean, the guy just loves to play. It's, he doesn't look the money and all that stuff that comes with it. Yeah, obviously he probably likes all that stuff, but the guy genuinely likes to play. And you don't have to twist his arm anywhere. And I think what he's done for himself with these, Olympic medals and all-time leading scorer and it was wealth of competition and winning. Yeah, I definitely think God willing, he's healthy enough to play. I think he'll definitely play.
Yeah, it's good for the game. So let's hope he does. It'll be towards the end of his career. He could cap it off with hopefully more championships by then and a gold medal. Let's finish off with a few Q&As. Had a shitload of them coming this week, so I want to get to a few of them. We cut a few segments out to get to these. So with the great start the Australians made in the first half, what would you have done differently before and after halftime to maintain the dominance, understanding there is only so long you can hold that amount of talent down? That's from Paul Cummins. So for me, you're right. That talent's going to eventually rise to the top. I would have just liked to have probably finished that first half better, really had an emphasis on not taking quick shots in the last couple of minutes of that first half, making sure you kept at least a 10, 9, 10, 11, 12-point lead instead of a 3-point lead. That helps your psyche going into the locker room. And in the third quarter, I mean, it's tough in FIBA. You only have 3 timeouts per half, and I felt like we could have burned a timeout early in that third quarter when they went on that run and it went from us leading to being down 8 or 10. I probably would have burnt one and got our guys a little settled just to burn it, get a reset. But other than that, there's not a whole lot you could do. Team USA, they're the most talented team in the world. And I think in spurts, we got caught up in the Team USA style because we play a similar style. We switch 1 through 5, we push the tempo, and unfortunately, that's their strength. And it was our strength against every other team. But against the US, they're used to doing that on a daily basis. So I think that kind of hurt us in the long run. I would have liked to have seen, which we actually ran in the bronze medal game, a lot more high post action to then go to a pick and roll. So what that means is you throw it to Jock or Nick Kay at the free throw line, you run some cuts off, and then if you want to get to a pick and roll, they dribble towards half court and hand off, and then it's actually starting a little bit flatter on the court rather than, it felt like Team USA game, especially in the third quarter, a lot of our pick and roll action, a lot of our action to get to actions was above the free throw line, kind of close to half court, and they pushed us out of all our shit. So that's when we turned the ball over and it just became a domino effect. So as you said, there's, you could make all those adjustments and still lose to this Team USA team. That's just the way the talent lies, but that'd be the things that I would change, bro.
Yeah, I'm not much of a X and O's game plan kind of guy, but I'm a big simplicity guy with screening. And I think a lot of times you saw slips on pick and rolls. I think you could have done a little bit better job letting them feel you, with your screening and hitting them. And like I always make when we're talking about with my friends and other colleagues in coaching, like with a team like in Australia playing in the United States, I sort of compare it to a boxer who's sort of playing an opponent that's a little overmatched. He's overmatched for that opponent. And instead of trying to knock him out in the first round, which that's not going to happen, you jab him and you body shot him, and you body shot him and you body shot him, and you let him feel you for 9-10, and let it go the distance. And I think the more you screen those guys, I know they switched a lot, but even just a hit on the screen and run them through and let them feel you and grind them down, the Lillards, the Bookers, the Durants, and let them feel you. Even though like they're going to switch and there's not much of an advantage, but like just hitting them a little bit more, letting them feel you a little bit more. I thought they sort of let them out a little easy on that, but like I just don't think there's much they could have done. I think they would have made their runs anyways, but that on a simple point, I mean, you know the game 1,000 times more than I do, but that little thing, I'm a big fan of screening, and I think that could sort of put you in a position to overachieve if you do it well, because again, they feel you. Sometimes you have some switching opportunities that happen because of your good screening. You could roll them into situations, but yeah, that's the only thing I would have done. Like I said, I'm not a game plan guy, so I don't really have much of an answer besides that.
Yeah, I think the loss of Baines probably affected that. He's our best screener, and he'll light you up. The other problem is because US was switching 1 through 5, I think we just kind of gave up on screening because we knew they were going to switch, so we're just trying to slip and get out of it as quickly as possible. But I think you need a mix of it. When teams are switching, you need to set the screen kind of lower and then try to punish them that way. But Baines would have been a huge acquisition, even though they went small ball. I feel like if he's rolling down the middle and they're putting Jrue Holiday on him, Baines is a good free throw shooter as well. So then they're in a predicament of fouling Baines. He's going to knock those 2 free throws down. So I think he was a big out in that USA game. But yeah, I mean, it's just one of those tough ones. Next one. Hi, Bogues and Pro. Can you go further into the Boomers culture and possibly try to pin down what it means to play for your country? Is it because you can never quit and change teams like professional players? Is it because it's a dream early on for everyone who plays the game to represent the country? Today we lost to the US, but I feel great pride in this team as a supporter. Hearing yourself, Bogues, and the most recent guests in Gaze and Longley talk about being a boomer, it's obvious how much that team and culture means. If you ever get sick of lockdown, come up to Darwin. We barely do them. Love the podcast from Dan. Look, the Boomers culture is a unique one. There's a lot of history there. There's a lot of great players that have come through, and it's always just been team first for the most part. There have been some shades of a few guys that have come through and try to treat it as for instance, a guy that's a free agent, doesn't have a deal in Europe or the NBL and wants to get his value up. There have been a few of those guys. I'm not going to lie, but not a lot. Then they're in the minority, and they get weeded out pretty quickly. So yeah, the national team, I think you make a valid point. You can't just change countries. You can't have a bad tournament and be like, I want to trade or I hate this guy. You have to make it work. And are there guys on the national team that don't get along as well as they should off the floor? Sure, there's different personalities, and that happens in all workplaces, but the difference is the understanding of, hey, we're not all going to agree on things off the court. We're not all going to be friends. We're not all going to have the same passions. One guy might like video games. One guy might we had guys that like playing checkers, and then we had a game called Drops, a gambling game. So everyone did different things, right? And that's what you got to respect. So once you put that aside, I think once we were in the locker room, team bus and all that, we were jovial. Everyone kind of, some guys listened to music, some guys made jokes, and it just was normal, and we understood that everyone's different and from all walks of life. And I think that's a culture within a culture. You don't want everyone that's the same. It's boring, and you don't want everyone that's the same just saying the same thing, because it generally can be fake, and you're just trying to say the right thing. And that's where that culture trumps it all. You understand there's going to be indiscretions at times and guys that don't get along, but for the betterment of the group, you put it aside for that 1 month or 2 months or 3 month commitment, and you try to win a gold. So that's where I see that. Dan, Pro, you got anything on that?
Bogues, the Olympics, I'll tell you, it is a special thing. Yes, playing for your country, you grew up with it. I don't care. Most kids just watch the Olympics when they're 12, 11, 12, 13 years old. Sometimes you don't really understand it at first, and it just grows into something that's special. What I love about the Olympics, I started in '84 watching a little bit, and I read the book recently in the last few years about the '84 draft. I think it's called '84 draft, and it talks about the Olympics, the Olympic trials in '84, and all those great players, Jordan, Barkley, Stockton, and just a slew of players that tried out for this team, and great players from different parts of the country that had to unite into one team and put their sort of number one option all the time attitude aside a little bit and do what's best for the team. And it's not perfect. Some teams like '04 and some other teams weren't as good at it than others were. '92 was obviously just the poster of it, where you had so many great players that put all their egos aside. And they had their winning ego for sure and a competitive ego, but they played and they took lesser roles to be on that team and to do what needed to be done to win. And yes, they were way overmatched with talent, no question about it. But to be able to do that in any country, it doesn't have to be the United States. I mean, Australia, those guys are number one options. A lot of those guys are number one options in their teams at home and, wherever they play. And now they got to come together for the greater good to try to win a medal. It's a beautiful thing. Some people can't do it. Some people can't handle it. Some countries have good talent that really can't put it together because they can't get out of their own way. And to have a coach that leads them and to hold them accountable, to put them in situations to be successful, and somebody who could sort of, those players could respect, maybe not respect fully, but at least their preparation and what they bring to the sport. It's to have a culture like that is beautiful. Like, as you see some teams, in professional leagues put quote unquote all-star teams together and they can't get it right because people can't put their egos aside. And I just think it's a beautiful thing for a country to do, a national team to be able to do, and just for the greater good, where most of those players that don't even play a minute or 2 minutes might play 30 minutes a night during their season, during their professional team, wherever they play. And to be able to sit on the bench and play a very small role just to help them win is great to watch, man.
No doubt. And that's a fun part of people that support us. They understand it, and that's a fun part of being a part of it. So, look, we all have remnants and we all have fingertips, if not arm's length, contact with all the boomers that just won the bronze. And we all have had kind of influences of getting them there, whether it's one iota or being involved with those teams or coaching those teams or even being a player in the 90s. So everyone in the Boomers program's utterly proud of what's happened. I think that's part of the culture as well. Next one, g'day, Bogues. Throughout, thoroughly enjoyed your work commentating the Boomers Olympic campaign. Great job with Gazy and Case. On top of the commentary, as a Warrior fan living in Australia, having been a League Pass subscriber for many a year now, the temptation to switch commentary to the opposing side sometimes provides too much for many. Have you had any funny dealings with Fitz? That's Bob Fitzgerald, who's the home announcer for the Golden State Warriors. And were you inspired by some of the classic Fitz commentary? Always seemed like he had a soft spot for the big Australian. I enjoy his constant bias and think he's a bit of a laugh, but completely understand how annoying he can be. And side note, he finishes with Bogues as a proud Melbourneian enduring the reign of the four-eyed monster, which is our politician that keeps locking us down, Daniel Andrews. And over all of his shit, it's refreshing to have someone your status sticking up for us all and not afraid to go against the norm. Appreciate you big time and hope to see you around the Kingston area sometime. All the best, mate. Great job with the pod. Dale Foley. So first off, your last statement, I cop a lot of shit for calling out lockdowns, but I grew up in a working class family and I would not have been, or that my father would not have been able to put food on the table if we were living in this time as a mechanic, because no one's getting their car serviced during lockdowns, essentially. So we would have been in some trouble. And a lot of people say, why do I care? I'm a millionaire. Why do I comment about all this kind of stuff? It's, because I understand what it's doing to the lower middle class. And there's people that, pro, if you're a landscaper or you're a plumber or whatever you are, you can't do that work from fucking Zoom at home on your computer. So they're the people that are greatly affected, the people that run our society on a daily basis and do the hard things. They're picking up rubbish and they're cleaning laborious jobs, cleaners, whatever it is. They're the ones that, don't have the luxury of doing stuff from home. So I'll always stick up for them. And it just seems that most of the people that are cheering on lockdowns or thinking that, it's not that bad. We're in our 6th one, pro, by the way. They've locked us down again here in Australia. We're in number 6. And yeah, it's just a tough time. The people that usually aren't affected by it are business people that can work from Zoom from their lounge room, and I think it's just inappropriate for those people to be saying, it's a small sacrifice we have to make. But anyhow, as far as the home commentary stuff, it is funny in the NBA, pro. I'm sure you've heard it listening to the League Pass. The Boston guys are pretty big homers as well. Listening to home feeds, and they have to be. They're employed by the team. I've had no issue with Bob Fitzgerald. I can understand why people, if you weren't a Warriors fan, would think he's a homer. Well, guess what? He is. He's paid by the Golden State Warriors to put a good product out for our team, and he's going to be pro our team. The other difference is if he's heavily critical of players, and which has happened before, some home commentators have been critical of their own players. They need to then see them on the airplane and the bus every other day, so they want to tread cautiously. They're essentially around the team and on our flights. They travel with us on the charter, so that creates a bit of conflict of interest, and you don't want to be shitting on a guy too much because he might pop up right next to you on the in the very plane seat you're sitting in, pro. But have you had any funny stories with commentators or anything like that in your past?
We had a guy in Boston, Bogues, Hall of Fame player and coach, Tommy Heinsohn. He just passed away pretty recently. And he was revered at Boston. Big guy, like, I don't know, had to be 6'8", 6'9", big guy. Loved Boston. I mean, was a Celtic through and through. And we played Phoenix, had to be like 2004. And they were fucking us on the calls. And he was killing them, like screaming. Thought he was going to have a heart attack, the poor bastard. And he screamed so badly on the telecast. I believe the NBA suspended him for like a week.
What?
In 2 games, and maybe even fined the team or fined him.
No way, really?
Yeah. Tommy Heinsohn.
They suspended a broadcaster?
He was fucking great. Tommy Heinsohn was the all-time homer and all-time great. And he went nuts. It was I'm almost positive it was the Phoenix Suns, and it was like one of the last years I was with the Celtics. And, oh my God, yeah, he fucking hated referees, and he was fantastic. And, so he got suspended. I think it was the Phoenix game. I'm almost positive, but he always was for the home team. He was a special dude, man. And he got suspended. I forgot how long it was. I'll look it up after we get off here. But yeah, it was early 2000s when it happened. And he was killing the referees, like screaming. And they're courtside. They're right behind the scores table doing the game. And it got to a point where they had to suspend him. It was pretty cool. He was a good dude, man.
You love the passion. You love the passion of home commentators, and I can understand the other side. If you're a neutral fan or a fan of the other team and that's the only feed you can get, it can be a little frustrating. They did a similar thing here, pro, in Australia with Australian rules football. They had there's a guy named Eddie Maguire, and they call him Eddie Everywhere, and he does basically anything to do with football. He's everywhere. And then he was doing our version of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire and all those shows. He's Eddie Everywhere is his name for obvious reasons. He's everywhere. And he's the president of the Collingwood Football Club, former president now, one of the biggest football clubs here. And there were always complaints about whenever he commentated their games that he was biased, which he was a little bit, but we don't have home feeds and away feeds in Australia. It's supposed to be neutral commentators for all games. So then on pay TV they made there was a package called Press Red for Ed. So you could get for any Collingwood game, it'd be just Eddie Maguire, like Homerisms, commentating Collingwood games. So it was kind of a cool marketing thing they turned it into, but that's very similar to what they do in the NBA. It pretty much is a press red for Ed for every home team because they have to promote their own team. That's just the reality of it. But you ever rarely get home commentators shitting on their own players unless something drastic happens. But I have seen circumstances when it's happened, and I've actually seen circumstances where players have actually gone, and mean mugged and staunched a few of the home commentators on flights and bus trips, or dropped the comment like, you better stop talking shit about me, man, or some shit like that, and then it kind of gets really, really awkward. But that's a fun part of the NBA rodeo.
This is the Heinsohn line right here. So Kenny Mauer, Paul Pierce got 2 teeth chipped. And no call by Kenny Mauer. So on the air, he goes, "This Kenny Mauer should go home to his wife because nobody loves him here. Nobody here loves him." No, Tommy's the best. Tommy's the best.
A little bit of banter, but I've never heard of a broadcaster getting suspended for criticizing. You've heard him for like saying something derogatory, racist, sexist, but not for just going at referees and officials. That's great.
He's the best. He's the best. So go ahead. I'm sorry, I cut you off. What were you saying about radio or something?
No, we're good. We're done. We're done. The episode 32 is done and in the books. Once again, congratulations to the US, France, and Australia in men's basketball. Actually, the women's game is going on right now. I'll give that a quick shout out. It's USA versus Japan. It looks like the US is going to win that one, but congratulations to Japan. They've really built their women's program up well in their own country, so a pretty special moment for them to get silver. At Rogue Bogues on all your favorites platforms. We're on all podcast platforms. We're on all social media platforms with the same name, at Hoop Consultants for Pro, and we will see you next week. Thanks, bro.
Yeah, and by the way, if anybody wants wife beater, Lawndale, San Antonio Spurs gear, I got it at pro.com with the mullet wig that you can get it for a set deal. So if anybody wants that at a trailer park near you, we could definitely have that at pro.com.
In a Spurs jersey, of course.
Of course, in a Spurs jersey.
All right.
In a Spurs jersey. With pizza slices on it.
See you next week.
Later, brother.